Max in turn one. He certainly doesn't want to be doing anything like this time around here in front of his home crowd. Obviously went on to win the race later on. In the sprint race in Silverstone, Lewis, you could hear, got a terrible getaway and threw away that chance to get himself on pole position for the actual main race, and Max went on to win that one. And then finally, of course, the last time that these two went head-to-head after starting alongside each other on the grid, this moment happened, and we definitely don't want to see anything like this here today in Zandvoort. May the best driver win.
Yeah, may the best driver win indeed. I just wonder though, just look at that orange smoke coming across the course. How does Lewis, in this, you know, he's entered the lion's den here. He's quite used to having his own way when we're in Britain, but this is the first time he's experienced it on the other foot, I think. Yeah, to this extent.
That's absolutely right. I mean, I was just thinking you'd have to go back to Lewis versus Alonso, really, in his first season of F1, where he had to take on a title rival on home ground like this. But even then, I didn't expect, I know that we saw partisan support like this, even in the peak of Alonso years. This is extraordinary. He's got to try and shut it out, Simon. We're looking here on the grid. You know, he's what, 30 feet away from these Dutch fans who are absolutely hoping that he makes a terrible start here, and he's got to try and shut that out.
Who, it's worth pointing out, these Dutch fans have been incredibly respectful so far this weekend towards Mercedes and to Lewis Hamilton especially. Let's hear from Lewis's boss, Toto Wolff.
Now, Toto, it's the first time that the title contenders have lined up alongside one another on the front row since Silverstone. How much will what happened there play on Lewis's mind, particularly here in front of this partisan crowd?
I think it doesn't play a big role, because they are professionals, and this is a tight circuit. None of them really wants to DNF, because that could be quite impactful for the championship. But you never know, the visor goes down, everybody wants to stay in front.
Lewis has been on catch-up really all weekend, having missed a chunk of practice. He still put in such an incredible performance yesterday, considering that. How impressed were you with it, and how much stronger do you think he can get in the race?
Very impressed, because he's been lacking a full session, and he said he's needed to come to terms with the circuit. And I think if he would have had a bit more laps, maybe he would have done it, but it is how it is.
And how much of a strategic advantage does it give you to have Valtteri and Lewis together?
If they stay like this, it can be a strategic advantage, but there is Pieros also who can play a role, and then it depends what Max does in the front.
Now, finally, a quick word on this crowd, because I know they might not all be shouting for you, but you've got to appreciate their passion.
They actually do. You know, they are very sportsmanlike, and they cheer for us too, obviously not like for their home hero, but it's a fantastic crowd.
Enjoy today. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Karun, I put this question to Nico and to Jensen a little earlier, but do you think the fact that Max is fighting one-handed against the Mercedes in behind is a bit of an advantage for Mercedes?
I think it's a big advantage.
Huge advantage.
For Mercedes. Okay. You know, we've said it before, they've got two dogs to fight. Bottas there getting out of the car on the grid. He's got a real role to play. He and Max are starting, Simon, on the cleaner side of the grid. I think there are two factors to think about. One, if they don't, you know, they get off in grid order, then what do they do with strategy? Second factor, what if Bottas on the clean side gets ahead of Lewis? This is a Valtteri Bottas who, by all accounts, is on his way out of Mercedes. How inclined is he going to be playing the team game and helping Lewis out?
More options then for Mercedes this afternoon. Imperative for Max that he gets a good start from pole position on the outside of the track as they head down towards turn one, infamously called Tarzan. Right, let's go to our own Tarzan. Nico Rosberg's out on the grid, ready to do a little grid walk.
So we're standing here right next to Max Verstappen's car, and also for the practice start coming up for the formation lap, it's so important that the car is positioned perfectly, that he can, if you look at the rear tire, that he's able to put rubber down in exactly the same place where he's going to be doing the start in a second. So that positioning are important details. Those positionings are important details to work on. Let's go over here. We see Lewis just arrived. Angela Cullum being right next to him as always. Let's go around the front maybe. And you can see that Angela just has the whole routine ready to go. She has like the spare helmet in case there's a radio problem. She has, what is she doing now? So the hair clip, Lewis style, of course, very, very important. That's like a crucial detail. to get the hairband ready, and then she has the drink, the electrolyte drink, maybe a little bit of food, just a little bit of energy bite before you get going. The problem is with what you eat and things before jumping in the car, you can't have too much because the seatbelts are so tight.
Kan die live gaan op Instagram, dan moet ik het zelf eens checken.
So uncomfortable.
Oh mijn
We just
god!
got Lewis passing by here now.
Jongen, wat een
Didn't get much of a
stream!
reaction there, but yes, that's understandable. Let's see if I can find Ivano, who used to do my starts. I just saw him here a second ago to see if, let's see with Bono. Let's see if we can get a Bono reaction, if he would give me a thumbs up or not. Then we'd go around the front, see if Bono will. Thumbs up, very confident, looking good. So I got an eye wink from Bono, so he seems to be very, very confident there. He had a smile on his face, so that's good to see. Here we've got Valtteri's car now. So this is horrible for the mechanics. You know, you've got the FIA, who's, you can see his hand is shaking. He's like full panic mode because he has to do a last minute change because the camera probably wasn't working. And the mechanics, like, they want to be doing their own rhythm and working on the car and preparing it. And now they have to wait for the FIA man to finish what he's doing, which can ruin the whole rhythm of what they're doing in preparation. So that's the last thing that you want happening as a mechanic in that situation. But he seems to have got the camera on fine and should be good to go. Oh, I found Ivano. Let's see if he gives me a thumbs up for the start. He used to do my starts. No, it's not Ivano. I'm mistaken. Anyways, engine, okay. He's in charge for the engine. Okay, so they're confident for their engines. I found Ivano. He's right next to me. Lee, if you can take Ivano clip. Start, confident. Not allowed to speak to you. Very confident. Okay, that's good. So I'm getting a lot of thumbs up here today. Everybody seems to be confident. It's going to be so exciting watching them go into turn one together. Let's walk further down the grid then. Gasly, big question today is he going to help? So you can see what they're doing is they're speaking about their front wing. If we can get maybe a little shot as well of the piece of paper. It's a front wing angle that they're talking about. I saw 44. And the difficult decision here is, which is what speaking to the engineer about, he just got a feel out there now for this half lap to the grid of his car balance, and the wind is totally different to Friday. So he has to now take a guess with what he was feeling out there with cold tires. He has to take a guess which wing setting he's going to go for. And so maybe in a second we'll see the mechanics come to the wing and make another change to maybe put that wing a little bit lower in case he was having too much oversteer because of the wing change. He's heading off to the bathroom. Some drivers, actually, I don't know, by now probably all of them go to the bathroom. I actually, at the beginning of my career, I couldn't be bothered to go to the bathroom because it's always very distracting to walk through the crowd and everything there and then find the bathroom somewhere. So I'm sorry. Yep, I heard the engine covers off Verstappen's car, so let's run to the front. Charles, confident? Yes, thumbs up from Charles. Let's run to the front. So anyways, I didn't used to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry for the mechanics, but I actually did my little toilet in the car before the start. But with all the heat and evaporation, I think it was okay. Never told the mechanics that was at Williams. But then eventually at Mercedes, I went to the bathroom always as well. Let's see what they're doing here. Are they relaxed or are they panicked about it? So they are checking, if I'm not mistaken, some temperatures coming out of there. Maybe they had a bit of a too hot engine on the lap to the grid, and they're now trying to cool it down more than usual. But that should be fine. It doesn't look like there's a major problem here. Don't know anybody at Red Bull who I could check with. So let's run back down maybe. Max Verstappen's car looks to be okay at the moment. Let's have a look what Max is doing. He's still at the bathroom, I think. Valtteri, everybody's gone at the moment. All the drivers. Let's see who. Oh, Toto. Let's see Toto. Toto, the two drivers are going to help with Verstappen, pass him into turn one. That's the plan. Okay, the plan is full attack apparently from Toto. Full attack into turn one. I'm sure they will have gone through that before in the team meeting to also make sure and discuss maybe like if Lewis goes right, what does Valtteri try and do? Does he try and go around the outside? They discuss those kind of things. Yep, so Ferrari here. I mean, these guys are on for a podium potentially. Huh? Gasly, the two Ferraris, so it's an important day for them because to the top three, you never know. One guy could just run wide in the turn one, and then you're on for a podium. So a big day for them potentially. And at this point, I'll pass back to Simon, who's got Christian.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nico. Christian Horner is alongside us. We were just having the conversation about how much of an advantage having, well, it is to Mercedes, having two cars when you're fighting one-handed today.
Well, it gives them strategic options. You know, they can split their strategies and so on. So it's very difficult to cover both. So we've got to pick our battles. And, you know, obviously we know who that's with. But, yeah, the best thing for us is just to try and, you know, get our heads down and get on with it.
Christian, we were saying before how impressed we've been with Max staying focused, staying calm. He looks like he's in a tunnel vision since Thursday we arrived here. What's it been like on the inside? I mean, look at it with the crowd here. It's so impressive for a 23-year-old.
It's been hugely impressive because, I mean, this whole place is about him, and he's managed to, you know, separate himself from that. You know, he's going about his business normally, just like any other race. But it's like being in some kind of festival for 3 days. But the atmosphere is quite sensational.
But how have you guys been able to help him with that? Because surely the demands from the media, the fans, the public has been massive. How have you managed to isolate him?
Stick to the basics, stick to the schedule. Nothing's different here to any other race. So the meetings, the briefings, everything just the same. And he's managed to, you know, detach himself from what's going on the other side of the fence, which is, as I say, fairly bananas.
Just in behind you can see the engine cover off Max's car. Any issues with that, Christian, at the moment?
No, that's standard procedure on the grid. So,
okay. Just on Sergio as well, obviously he's starting from the pit lane today. We're obviously making a few changes to optimise what he can do.
Well, we've taken the opportunity because it, you know, obviously got caught out yesterday that we've changed the engine and other parts, so hopefully that avoids penalties for him later in the year, and it's going to be fascinating to see how much progress can he make.
And finally, Pierre Gasly in fourth. You haven't got Checo there, as Simon said. What can Gasly do? Have you guys in Helmet had a chat and seen how he could come into play? Because he's looked very quick here all weekend.
Yeah, he's doing a very, very good job. He's been quick not just this weekend, but in previous weekends too. So the best thing he can do is split those Mercedes for us, because if we can get a car between the two of them, then that does take away some of their strategic options. And I think it's going to be tough to overtake here, so strategy is going to be crucial.
Thanks, Christian. Have a good race. Best of luck this afternoon. Max Verstappen starting his 10th pole position of his career. Only had 4, didn't he, coming into this season? He's now had 6 of his last 7. Now, a little bit of smoke coming out the back of Daniel Ricciardo's car. All looks reasonably calm, though, on the grid. Let's head back to Nico. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so at the moment, the mechanics are actually not doing much. It's really the engineers who are now checking the data to see if everything's okay. Both of them are working intensely focused here. But I think also then they seem to be, I just see a thumbs up now, so they seem to be confident that everything's okay. Ross Brawn passing by is doing so much good for the sport at the moment with all his experience. He's doing a fantastic job. And the other thing that they're doing on the data now is Ricciardo did a practice start at the end of the pit lane on the way out. And of course, I think I saw a lot of wheel spin, and so they probably do a last check on that to see if the driver has 3 different positions on his clutch that he's practiced on the clutch lever. So it's the deep position, the shallow, and the normal position. And there can be a last point of advice here, depending on what they think. They could recommend, hey, just go for the shallow. That would probably work better today for the start. So that's also a final decision that they will do here on the grid when the driver arrives and speaks to the engineer. So coming to George's car, a lot of the mechanics here who I worked with back ages ago, not allowed to do that, sorry. So still a lot of familiar faces here. And George, of course, yesterday, I mean, he had a mistake in the end there. He would have been maybe otherwise much further up the grid. But nevertheless, from 11, he has free tire choice. And I think we can expect fireworks from him today. So looking forward to his race. And then I think at this point in time, looking around, it's best to go Lawrence Stroll, big boss here of Aston Martin. Let's go back to Simon.
Yeah, good stuff. Very, very special guest here. As I said, if you're into your dance music, then Holland is the place for you. They have all of the top DJs, and perhaps the main man is with me right now, DJ Tiesto. How are you? Look, this crowd is fantastic. You're a guy that's kind of used to bringing crowds together. Yeah. What is it about Max, do you think, that's galvanized all of Holland?
I mean, they really love Max in Holland.
Hoe is het lijk weg?
He's an amazing
racer,
and people are so excited to see him. You know, we haven't had a racer like that forever, so it's really, really special for us. and to have the race here in Zandvoort is really amazing.
Dave, what Simon's not telling you is he's a DJ himself.
Oh, yeah.
You can see on the pictures. But that's in there playing his set. But listen, how impressive you've been with Max. You're used to big crowds. This is the first time for him on home ground. Have you spent time with him? Have you seen him? Have you seen how he's soaking all this up?
Yeah, no, he's very excited because it's the Lions Den here, right? So the Orange team came out, and he's super pumped to win. Like I spoke to him earlier, so yeah, he's really pumped up.
We had Armin van Buren playing a little bit earlier. You're playing a set afterwards for an hour, as I understand it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough gig, isn't it, if Max doesn't win?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough gig, but that's why they hired me. And I can always make the people happy, no matter what.
I was going to say, are you a big Formula One fan? We've seen you in Mexico before.
Yeah.
Is it something you follow? Have you followed it for years?
Yeah. I follow the Netflix series as well. It's really fun to see. I know all the characters now, and I know a lot more about racing since then.
Great stuff. Listen, we're looking forward, really looking forward to hearing you play later. Best of luck, and you wave the checkered flag as well. There we go. DJ Tiesto. Karun, let's just have a...
It's so hard to hear you guys. Huh?
No problem. I know. We're all going deaf anyway. You would do here, wouldn't you, because of this crowd? I have to say, though, you really have to be here to understand what it's like. We've been waiting for crowds to return, but it's a special crowd, isn't it? They kind of move as one. And we talk about party atmosphere, but it's just smiles on faces everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of my favorite race weekends, to be honest. People are in such a great mood. To be honest, it was like Silverstone. We had a capacity crowd there, a sunny weekend at the British Grand Prix. But obviously, the crowd are now supporting the other title contender, and I'm fascinated to see how this plays out between the two title protagonists.
There we go. It is really hard. You can almost not hear yourself think, but it's a pleasure to be in that position. Okay, the drivers have made their way to the front of the grid. It's time for Formula One's We Race as One message.
We race because it's who we are.
We race to compete.
On the tracks, in the pits, as a sport.
But we all race for something bigger.
It's time we race
for equality.
It's time we race for sustainability.
It's time we race to be global citizens.
It's time we race for equal access, opportunities, and representation.
Because sport can change the world, but it's up to us to make sure that change is for the better.
United, we are stronger.
Change starts with you.
It needs to come from your heart.
Keep working.
Keep learning. Keep on understanding.
We have a platform to
shift change.
Starting little by little.
Boy or girl, man or woman.
United for the same causes.
We have the opportunity to spread the right message.
If we all pull together.
Every single person has responsibility.
The best example is our own example.
We need to be responsible on what kind of mark we leave.
We don't have all the answers yet, but we can help find them.
Change starts here.
We race.
We race.
We race.
We race.
We race.
We race as one.
Formula One united in its anti-racism message. It's time for the anti-racism gesture.
Thank you for this statement of support for the values sustainable community and end racism in the world. Formula One, the FIA, took this moment in recognition of the importance of We Race as One.
So the heavy beats drop for a moment as we pause and take time to line up for the Dutch national anthem. wonderful. It makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. What an amazing, amazing event that the Dutch have put on here. As we wait for George Russell, though, let me just change the tack slightly, and I need to pick you up on this, Nico. Did you just admit on that grid walk that you used to go to the bathroom in the car?
Yes. No, because it's only a little one, and I promise you, having a full bladder whilst you're racing at 300 kilometers an hour is the worst feeling possible, and you can't do it whilst racing because you have all the adrenaline. So you have to make sure that you plan that properly.
Johnny Herbert, who I was going to say, who do you think you are, Johnny Herbert? He once admitted to that. We're going to just stand by. We're trying to wait just to see if we can have a quick word with George Russell if he breezes past us, but it looks like he may have weighed his way to the car, unfortunately. So we'll do that, and I'm not saying that he's a stand-in, but let's have a quick word with Otmar. Otmar, it was a disappointing day yesterday, and in the end, nothing was done about the two Haas cars in front of you squabbling that cost Sebastian Vettel. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you know, even if they punish the Haas cars, that doesn't help us, doesn't make us any better off. I think the bigger picture, we've got to look at how those things happen and make sure that we put some rules in place so that it can't happen again. And I think we've got the rules, we just have to enforce them a little bit better.
But you also offset yourself, huh? So it's a little bit of a strategy thing as well. You might need to look in internally, I think, because you put yourself into that situation to run into those guys at the end of the lap, starting a lap. Anyways, this weekend, pace-wise, you're a little bit on a back foot, also pace-wise. Do you think there's an opportunity in the race maybe to move forward a little bit?
Well, race pace is very competitive. I don't know if you looked at that, but our race pace is really good. I think we underperformed in qualifying a bit because we got stuck, like you said. And secondly, Lance's quick lap, we had the red flag from Latifi. So the difficulty here is overtaking, as you know.
Thanks, Omar. Appreciate your time. Zandvoort is jumping, so's Ted.
Indeed it is, and come on everybody, I know summer's over, I know it's work tomorrow, I know the kids might be going back to school, but even if you're not a Max Verstappen fan, go to the wardrobe, get out something orange, stick it on, and have a party with everyone here, shall we? Because we're all ready to go, even for an hour and a half around this crazy little track. Look at the banking down to the last corner. How great is that? How great is the banking anywhere around here? Now, if you're wondering who it is, who's the man with the green flag, well, that's him. It's Richard. He's the green flag when all the cars are formed up on the grid, and then he comes on to the grid with this green flag, and he waves it. And that gives the starter the cue to get the lights out. But let's have a look at the drivers as they're getting ready for the Dutch Grand Prix. Mick Schumacher on the back row of the grid. I love the Michael Schumacher-inspired design, the crash helmet. It was a special for Belgium last time round, exactly the copy of what his great dad Michael debuted with in that Jordan in 1991, and Mick has got the same one. It's absolutely beautiful stuff. Here is the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel, figuring out what he can do from way back down here, 15th on the grid. It's not much, but you know what, today anybody could do anything. All right, maybe only the top 10 drivers might be able to win the race, but anybody with the safety cars and the crazy race we're going to get, we think, round here, could do anything, even Lando Norris. Such a disappointing qualifying for McLaren in this big fight that they've got with Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. It was great for Ferrari, terrible for Lando. Not his fault, not his fault. He got caught out with red flags and all of that. But, you know, they can move forward. How? I don't know. They're going to have to do something clever. Daniel Ricciardo is P10, but they're going to have to do something clever with Lando to get him forwards. George Russell, could this be the last race with Williams when everybody knows that he's not going to be, for sure, a Williams driver next year? We're expecting him to be announced very shortly as a Mercedes driver alongside Lewis next year. Daniel Ricciardo's getting in the mood. He's getting his own music, whatever he's taken out on there, and his very beautiful, colourful crash helmet there with a little bit of orange juice around the back of it. Didn't you know that? Daniel Ricciardo, pre-race drink, bit of OJ, lovely stuff. Then we go with the French team, also still riding high. You get a sense, Esteban Ocon, the last guy who actually won a proper race back in Hungary. Can't really call Belgium last time out a proper race. And here is the lanky Frenchman. Ooh, getting those big legs into the cockpit. He's so tall, isn't he? Such slim legs, perfect for a racing driver. How he manages to fit in that cockpit, I do not know. Bravo, Giovinazzi! Bravo, Giovinazzi! His best start in the hybrid era. Alfa Romeo Sauber's best start in the hybrid era. Seventh? Giovinazzi? Wow, right next to his parent company, Ferrari, so showing what they can do. But, Simon, what can you see at the front of the grid? Surely Lewis Hamilton isn't going to send all these nice people in orange home unhappy by the end of the day, is he?
Time will tell. Thanks, Ted. I just wonder, Nico, say for yourself, let's hypothetically talk about it. If you're Valtteri Bottas and you're leaving Mercedes, are you a team player this afternoon and for the rest of the season?
Then you just send it, totally. but knowing Valtteri, though, he tends to be a nice guy in that sense, so I think he will eventually play the team game today as well. So we can really think that it's going to be 2 Mercedes against Verstappen, and that really could open things up, as we've been saying.
Verstappen needs to build a lead so he gets out of undercut range, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're wrong. The other way is that you take it really easy and you go slow. So you keep everyone bunched up, and so the window doesn't open up for anybody to stop, because you'd fall into full traffic. And so none of the Mercedes will be able to stop, and then at the end of the stint, bomb it and drive away. That could be a smart approach.
Can you see a repeat of Silverstone here?
Yes, I can, but let's hope everybody keeps safe. That's the most important thing. But beyond that, I mean, yes, let's see some wheel banging. Let's go for it.
The run down to turn 1, as we were saying, Max Verstappen is on the outside, Lewis Hamilton on the inside, and Valtteri Bottas tucked in behind. Less than all. Remember when they get down to turn 3, the steeper of bankings. Is there a tighter line? Is the line wide? Will we see them go down there together? So many questions to be answered in front of this huge Dutch partisan support. This place is absolutely going for it. An amazing atmosphere here for the 31st running of the Dutch Grand Prix. That's next.
Singing or speaking. Reason or fun. Head or heart. Sensitive or strong. Progress isn't either or. Progress is everything.
Jerry's here! Jerry! Mate, how are you?
It's so good, Jerry!
Good to see all of you, yeah.
Why is Jerry so popular? It's been like this ever since we started using Workday. What do you mean? It makes it easier to develop great relationships with our suppliers. Now, everyone, everywhere loves Jerry. They sure do. They do. They really do.
Workday. Finance, HR, planning, and spend management for a changing world.
For those of you watching F1 on Sky Q, the Sky Race Recap allows you to quickly catch up on all the key moments from a Grand Prix weekend. So if you join late and have missed any of the action, or simply want to go back and watch the best bits once again, then you can. All you have to do is hit the red button on your remote and select Race Recap. A timeline of events will appear that you can navigate through, including the start, overtakes and all the crucial moments. So whether it's before, during or after the race, Sky Sports F1 is the go-to destination for all the best F1 news, views and action.
The Grand Prix scene moves back to the fast, flat and curvy 2.6-mile circuit amongst the sand dunes of Zandvoort by the sea.
We were born in '97.
Is the youngest driver ever to win a Formula One Grand Prix.
99.9% of this crowd are here to see one man and one man only. Max Verstappen, no one can deny him pole.
Yes, guys, unbelievable. It's just flying. Thank you so much.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. 13,159 days since we last came to Zandvoort. The Dutch Grand Prix is back. This is round 13 of 22 in the Formula One season of 2021. There's a full house in here, and the home favourite is on pole. They've been making their way to the circuit throughout the morning. 26,000 fans plus travelling by bicycle, and less than 2% arriving by car. The train station has had to be extended just to cope with the fans here. There are the bike parks, and as I say, 13,159 days since Niki Lauda won here. His final F1 victory in a McLaren at 1-2 that afternoon. McLaren here in orange, but it's the orange for Red Bull and the Max Verstappen supporters that are giving us a festival-type atmosphere around this 2.6-mile circuit. There are 14 corners, 4 to the left and 10 to the right, and only 215 metres from the start down to the breaking point at the new Tarzan corner where Mario Andretti tried to get past James Hunt in 1977. He spun, Hunt crashed out, Andretti would retire on lap 14. This is Lauda and Prost reversing their positions from the 1984 Dutch Grand Prix. Niki Lauda would go on to win. McLaren with 2 successive 1-2 finishes. It is absolutely gorgeous here this afternoon. Sun is shining, no need for wet weather or intermediate tyres, so it's the C3, the C2 and the C1 tyres. They are the hardest in the Pirelli compound. We see them here on the banking around the final corner. Here's the starting grid then. 6 pole in 7 races for Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton alongside him for the 6th time this season. They share the front row. Valtteri Bottas for the 6th time this year starts 3rd on the grid, while Pierre Gasly matches his best qualifying of the season in 4th. 5th and 6th, it's an all-Ferrari 3rd row. Charles Leclerc ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz, and then comes Antonio Giovinazzi. So 5th, 6th and 7th all-Ferrari power. Esteban Ocon out-qualifies Fernando Alonso. He's 8th, Alonso 9th, it's 7-6 in the head-to-head this season, and Daniel Ricciardo is the lead McLaren in 10th. George Russell crashed in qualifying, still managed to qualify 11th ahead of Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Then comes Lando Norris, first time he hasn't reached Q3 this season. He's got Yuki Tsunoda for company. In 15th, it's Sebastian Vettel out in qualifying 1 for the first time since the opening round. He's got Robert Kubica alongside him, Kubica deputising for Kimi Raikkonen. Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin start 17th and 18th because it's a pit lane start for Nicholas Latifi and for Sergio Perez. Latifi crashed in qualifying. Perez has had his engine changed as well. It is a sea of colour. It is a wonderful atmosphere to start this race. The home crowd have got their man on pole, and for us, Jenson Button, we've got the front row we were looking for as well.
We do. It's not been the first time we've had this front row, but very, very excited to see these two up there. The best in the world right now, and they've had some tricky turn ones in the past, so I'm really, really looking forward to this race getting underway.
Well, look, we got as far as Copse before they collided at Silverstone the last time they started together. Is anything that happened on that opening lap in Silverstone going through the minds of Verstappen or Hamilton at this moment?
It might be now, but as soon as those lights go out, everything else is forgotten. You know, Max has the crowd behind him, but once the lights go out, it's just purely yourself and the car and the people you're racing against. So no, I don't think they'll drive any differently than they did then.
But what is similar to Silverstone here is the fact that Max is in the faster car on the evidence of the times this weekend, and Hamilton knows it's going to be tricky to overtake if he doesn't do it quickly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only real chance is lap 1. We do have DRS, so there's possibilities there. We don't really know what tyre degradation is going to be like. Max has said it's quite big, which is a surprise, but they do have 2 cars, Mercedes, at the front. Valtteri is just behind Lewis, which is going to really, really help their strategy running through the race today.
He needs a wingman today, does Lewis Hamilton. Valtteri Bottas is a man that's won here twice before in the F3 Masters event. He could go well as well. Top 10, all starting on the soft compound tyre. George Russell gets a free tyre choice. They've gone for mediums at Williams, medium for Lando Norris at McLaren, Robert Kubica at Alfa Romeo, and also for Nikita Mazepin, Nicholas Latifi, and Sergio Perez starting on the hard tyre. He's doing the Hail Mary today. He's going long.
He's got to try something different. He knows how quick that car is. His teammate's on pole position. So, yes, I think Checo will be doing an unusual strategy today.
They've completely swapped the power units, and they've taken the hits as a result of that for Sergio Perez. They knew that was coming after the crash at Turn 1 in Hungary a couple of races ago. There's the banking around Turn 3. Plenty of lines to be taken through there. The high line seems to be the best line. And the predicted pit stop strategy today, if you can hang out to lap 25 to 30, you're in absolute prime position to stick on a hard or a medium. They still don't quite know, the teams.
They don't, and that's what's great. We haven't raced it. Well, none of these guys have ever raced here in an F1 car. So degradation, we don't know what it's going to be like. So that makes it super exciting. That turn 3 is just lovely to watch the cars through there. It's a completely different line than you would think, the high line, but it works and it looks so cool on TV.
Kind of slingshots you out, doesn't it? And back into it again. Don't count out Ferrari today. They've shown pace. Charles Leclerc fastest in one of the practice sessions and also in Q1. Carlos Sainz crashed in FP3. Brilliant qualifying to go and put it 6th on the grid. Giovinazzi, incredible qualifying to put it 7th on the grid, but they are the subplots to the main event, and they said don't bring any flares, but I don't think the crowd here got the memo on that. That is acrid smoke that is billowing into our commentary box and might just obscure the vision a bit for the drivers.
And this is before the race has started. Imagine, you know, if Max does win, you're not going to see anything.
Well, the king is here, but for this racetrack, there is only one king, and it's King Max, as far as the crowd are concerned. Lauda, Prost, Arnoux, Pironi and Prost, the previous winners here at Zandvoort. The man with the most wins around this track in Formula 1, Jim Clark, with 4 previous victories. And there is Max Verstappen then making his way around the banking and onto his grid spot. And I suppose for the first time this weekend, Jensen, before the lights go out, experiencing a moment of calm.
Yes, kind of, but you're super nervous at this point. There's so much adrenaline pumping through your body, you know, and you've got the whole crowd. Look at the size of that grandstand, and they're all here for Max, which adds pressure. I know he's very good under pressure, but it is super pressure from the fans here. So he really does need to get a nice clean start off the line. When he does, he can breathe.
Nicholas Latifi coming out of George Russell's garage, because otherwise they'd have to come out, they'd push him back and he'd come out again. It's so tight down in that pit lane, and watch out for that when we get to pit stops. It could be absolutely chaos down there. Toto Wolff looks on. You can barely see the final corner for the orange smoke. And where is Max Verstappen pointing that car? He's pointing it straight towards Lewis Hamilton.
He is. It's a strange lineup, actually. It's like a little snake on this side of the grid.
So, no surprises that Verstappen's first moment of priority here to cut off any threat of a fast-starting Lewis Hamilton. Let's see how this transpires then. 72 laps ahead of us here at Zandvoort for the return of the Dutch Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go. Pretty even start from the front too. Verstappen does move over to cut off Lewis Hamilton. That gets a roar of approval. It is 1-2-3. Hamilton in second. Verstappen leads Bottas third. And round the first corner we go. The 2 Ferraris might be swapping places as Carlos Sainz comes under a bit of pressure as well from his teammates. Charles Leclerc round the banking now. And that's the Alpine passer Antonio Giovinazzi and Fernando Alonso. Esteban Ocon's lost places, but it's a dream start for Max Verstappen as Giovinazzi gets on the grass and has to get his elbows out.
Oh, that was a very simple off the line for the front 2, but there's so much action now from turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 and through the sweeping right-hander.
Alonso ahead then of Esteban Ocon. Daniel Ricciardo comes next. George Russell stuck in the middle of that scrap as well. Out in front, Max Verstappen leads from Hamilton, Bottas, Gasly, Leclerc and Sainz. Alonso up into 7th place. As I mentioned, there's Lando Norris trying to go around the outside of Sebastian Vettel at turn 10, where Vettel went off in practice. Meanwhile, let's go to the end of that straight through the chicane and into the grandstand section. Max Verstappen gets the roar of the crowd as he leads the way. Ocon very close to his teammate Fernando Alonso. Sebastian Vettel might be in a position to try and get past the car in front, which is George Russell, but that straight just isn't quite long enough for him. And Verstappen leads them over the line. His gap, 1.7 seconds. We haven't got DRS until the end of lap 2. He's already out of any potential threat as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, massive lead after 1 lap. Even after turn 2, he had a big lead on Lewis. But there's a lot of fighting going on in the field, and the reason is they just have to make it work now when the tyres are cold. There's slight differences in the tyre warm-up with these cars, and then it will calm down a little bit. But great to see the fighting. This turn 3, even though there's no overtaking manoeuvres, it's so nice to see the different lines through there.
They say it's a bit like Monaco. It could be a procession, but it's a lot higher speed than Monaco, and I haven't seen any boats since we turned right to come off the beach road first thing this morning. And Nikita Mazepin has got past his teammate Mick Schumacher and up into 17th place. Sergio Perez is ahead of Nicholas Latifi in 19th. Giovinazzi's lost 3 places. He's down in 10th at the moment. Alonso a big gainer at the start, but Verstappen doing what he needed to do and now stretching that lead.
Ricciardo is smoking and dropping oil.
And there was a bit of a theory that Ricciardo was showing signs of smoke coming out of his car. There it goes again on his lap to the grid. Is Ricciardo suffering from a few technical issues there? That doesn't look pretty.
It does, and it's when he's coming on power as well. So no, if there's oil coming out of that, it's definitely not positive. Sometimes you do get a little bit of overfill and a bit of smoke, but not an extreme amount of oil. So yeah, for George to be saying that, yeah, I don't think that's going to be lasting for too much longer.
Yeah, well, he's the man that would be in prime position to tell us if there is a bit of oil coming out. But what you don't want is too much oil drops on the track and it starts to get a bit slippy, because then you see cars spinning off as round turn 3 we go, and that high line once again very much in evidence as Lando Norris tries to chase down Lance Stroll. And it's settle in and be patient after the start of this race.
Yeah, it's a very straightforward start for the first two. Valtteri, not such a good start. It's been quite a regular thing for him of late, but then a little bit of a lock-up from Pierre Gasly. Looks like the Ferrari's going to be able to get him on the exit, but they just can't, as he gets a good exit from turn 1 from Tarzan. Into turn 3, really exciting with the Ferraris down low, trying a different line, and then Fernando around the outside. I don't know how he does it. He is so good at these lap 1. And again, he's just able to pick that beautiful line and make the difference.
I tell you what, Fernando almost got collected by George Russell before he took that high line as well. We're on board with Antonio Giovinazzi now, who lost places on that opening lap as he sees the Alpine coming right into his field, and we had to take a step back from our monitor there because that was almost a big collision.
Yeah, it was a little bit naughty by Sainz, I think, pushing him onto the grass there, and then Fernando coming through and having a wobble on the bump with cold tyres was a little bit sketchy, but a little touch, but I don't think it would have done any damage to his front wing.
Looks a lot calmer off board than on board at the start of this particular race. Daniel Ricciardo puffing bits of smoke from the exhaust of his McLaren in 9th place currently, out in the lead, 2.1 seconds the advantage for Max Verstappen. And for the first time this afternoon, as Esteban Ocon chases down his teammate Fernando Alonso, we can go to Sky Race Control with Karun Chandler.
Yeah, thanks, Trophy. I've been listening into Daniel Ricciardo's radio. They've given him a bunch of instructions in terms of driver default, which basically means changing some of the sensors, maybe failing and shutting down some of the sensors. But they don't seem to think it's a car stopper. They've asked him to carry on. They said, good start, good job, keep going.
Control, Alt, Delete, and then press a few more buttons for Daniel Ricciardo at the moment. DRS is now enabled. Trouble for Lewis Hamilton is he needs at least a second and a bit to try and get within DRS range. And what Mercedes can't afford to happen is Verstappen dance off into the distance and cut out any threat of the undercut by the time we get to the pit stops.
Yeah, they need every option possible on the pit stop. Maybe an undercut with Valtteri to make Max jump early or too early. But if Max has a 10-second lead, it all goes out the window.
And that was the message I was getting when I was talking to a few people down at Mercedes today, as once again Alonso takes the high line. Esteban Ocon tries the undercut around the banking and goes the low line and almost a low point, with both Alpines taking each other out.
The only way it can work is if you're super close to the car in front on entry and you throw it down the inside and you cut them off on the exit, because
We're going to struggle to keep this pace.
on lap 5 he's worried about the tyres already.
Yeah, we've heard that before.
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
often he finds some pace.
Some of it might be mind games, but we will have to wait and see. But this track is really tough on tyres because you're fully loaded on that left front for a very long period of time at very high G.
And because we had long interruptions in FP1 and FP2 for red flags, the teams just didn't get the running in that they would have desired to try and establish just how long these tyres can go for. So everything is theory at the moment, whilst we see the practice out on the track. And this is Esteban Ocon, cheeky, committed, bold. Oh, how squirrely did Alonso look coming out that turn?
But he wasn't able to cut him off at the exit, so Fernando, with that wide line, is able to get a much better exit, and possible for Ocon to get past him.
You remember back to Baku at the restart, Fernando Alonso picked up 4 places in 2 laps. Well, he was trying something similar here. It was off-roading at times. Did he touch there?
A little bit,
yeah.
And it's unsettled Ocon a little bit, but this is the weird one. Every lap in practice, they've done the high line, and then suddenly in the race, they've decided that the low line is the better line. It doesn't really make sense.
It certainly doesn't, but what was the paddock talk, Ted Kravitz, that the first driver to nail turn 3 with the right line was Fernando Alonso this week.
Yeah, and he certainly delivered that, although Ocon has been quicker and has got eventually past. The line from McLaren, team radio.
Lando is extremely slow in front.
Ocon's much quicker. He is much quicker. It's only a matter of time before he gets past. We'll see whether he manages to do it. Line from McLaren. We know smoking's bad for you, but the car has stopped smoking. And from McLaren, they say there's no issue with Daniel Ricciardo's car. Okay, so whatever he did, Karoom was talking about on the steering wheel, has worked. And a quick one, Mick Schumacher, you saw him in the pit stop, must have taken about 30 seconds to change the front nose. He's come together, he came together with somebody and has rejoined, but last.
Thanks ever so much, Ted. I wonder who makes the call on that Alpine pit wall if they are going to employ team orders. It's Sergio Perez, that's a huge lock-up going into Tarzan. That's not going to do the hard tyres any favours.
He's probably not really working them that much, because it is a super hard tyre. It's the hardest tyre that we actually have in Formula 1 this year. So, yeah, you can see the flat spot there. But that radio call from Ocon would have been... He's not actually that much quicker, but please let me past. I think I can do a better job.
It does show you just how difficult it is to overtake here at Zandvoort if Sergio Perez is struggling to get past Nikita Mazepin in the Haas. We've got the Red Bull, which is the fastest car this weekend, struggling to get past the slowest car this weekend and locking up as a result of it. Out in front, 3 seconds the gap. Verstappen over Hamilton. Let's go to Sky Race Control. Once again, Valtteri Bottas first.
Just play the long game.
Patience, Valtteri, patience. Karoom, to you.
Well, interestingly, they've been telling Max Verstappen on the radio that Valtteri is now 6 seconds behind. So they effectively tell him, look, your race is really only with Lewis. In terms of the time management, we heard Lewis there talking about his tyres. They've told him to manage the tyres a bit more, which is basically don't load it as hard. Through this corner properly, we're watching turn 7. They're saying Verstappen is taking it easier through those double rights, and it's allowing his tyres to relax a little bit. Gianpaolo Lambesi, Max Verstappen's engineer, meanwhile, has been on the radio to say everything looks good exactly as we saw in FP2. What we must remember, of course, Lewis Hamilton didn't do FP2 with that engine issue. And this, I think, is coming into play here. Verstappen's got the experience on long runs that Lewis Hamilton doesn't.
Well, he did actually have a long run in FP3 though on the soft tyre, but you know, you're talking about the long right-handers there, the double long right-hander. It was perfect because we actually could listen to Max Verstappen through those two corners, and he's so far off the throttle pedal. Where normally through the first one at least, you're pretty much flat. It's a tiny little lift and back on, but today he is cruising it through those two because those are the ones that really punish that front left.
8 of the first 10 Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort were led from start to finish between 1952 and 1964. We're on lap 9 at the moment, and leading from lights out to this moment is Max Verstappen, looking very cool and very calm and very composed, but I'm sure it's a very different matter in the cockpit as Ferrari say, let's go to plan B. Now, is that a shorter first stint, I wonder? Try and gain some clear air, some track position to bang in some quicker lap times.
I mean, we can guess all we like, but we'll see soon. But this is the dream scenario for Max. He's got a nice little gap on Lewis, and it means he can look after his tyres because, as you said, they've had such a short amount of time on this track to actually have long runs. They don't really know where the degradation is going to go, but Lewis might be holding back equally.
Here's really interesting. Sergio Perez is pitting, no doubt because of those flat spots that we saw on the hard compound tyre, but he's coming out onto the track now just as Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are making their way, as you can see, around the final corner. So I wonder how long before Max Verstappen has a chance to lap his teammate, who then might be in a very good position to just hold up Lewis Hamilton a touch and play the team game.
They don't do that, do they? Teams in F1?
I'm sure they might be thinking about it, albeit accidental because of those flat spots. 1,000 race laps led for Max Verstappen, 23 years old, and he has reached 1,000 laps led in his Formula 1 career. The only Dutchman ever to lead a Formula 1 Grand Prix as we head to Karun Chandok.
So they think Lewis Hamilton is switching to a two-stop crop. He's done the fastest lap. They've told him.
Okay, Checo, vibrations are too high. You have to pit. So that's a long way to go. Still points to be had.
That's completely ruined his race on hard tyre. They've told Lewis target a -7. So as Jensen knows, that means from the plan, we're going to pit 7 laps earlier. Look at him, the car's squirming around. The body language, the attitude of the car tells me that is a guy who's taking everything out of the tyres, is going to pit early. Are they switching to a 2-stop? Red Bull start to think so. They've just told Max, we think Lewis is switching to a 2-stop.
So...
Okay, Max, Hamilton potentially switching into a 2-stop. Looks like he's been given the hurry up. Last lap at 14.7, gap at 2.8.
So what does Max Verstappen do now? Does he respond by pushing and going for a 2-stop himself? Or does he think, oh, I'm going to play my own game?
This is such a tricky one, because I would always follow what Lewis is doing, because he's the guy who's fighting for the championship. But if they both do a 2-stop and Valtteri does a 1, they have to overtake Valtteri. So that's the tricky one for Max. But Max has the pace, so it'll be interesting to see. But Lewis, this is the difference when you can actually push an F1 car on these tyres, how much quicker you can go. They really do have to back it up to do a 1-stop around here, which makes it quite interesting.
Verstappen's responded by going a 10th of a second quicker on the last lap after Hamilton has set the fastest lap on the previous lap. But this is what we talk about quite often, Jensen, in that when you've got 2 cars from one team up against 1 car from the championship rivals, you've got so many more strategic options available to you, as in comes Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, and a 2.3 second stop, which is not bad at all. A lot of practice has been going on in the pit lane, and that's a fairly rapid stop, given that we're expecting pit stops to be a couple of tenths of a second slower after the new directive to slow pit stops down that was brought in at Spa but never used in the rain there.
Exactly. Sergio Perez, fastest lap of the race on a medium tyre. With Lewis, I don't think we're going to see him pitting anytime soon, because if he does, he's going to drop in behind. I mean, Leclerc is one thing, but also going to drop in behind Gasly, which is a big no-no, I think, for the Mercedes car.
I think what they're looking for in about 7 laps time, potentially, as we're on board with Lance Stroll, try and slot into a gap behind Charles Leclerc if they can, or behind Carlos Sainz if they can, and run the race from there.
Vettel has just pitted. He was 2 cars behind us.
Yeah, you'll be able to go miles faster, like 3 seconds, 2 seconds quicker, cleaner than this.
And there's not much space on this track, Jensen, but if you can find it, Lando Norris there saying that the benefits are enormous.
Yeah, being clearer it makes a big difference around here, especially because they're behind the Williams, which is definitely not on the pace of the McLaren on a long run anyway. So yeah, he is right, but the problem is you pit. You come out in traffic, nobody's overtaken yet on the track, or in practice even, so they don't really know how that strategy is going to work.
Yeah, the one guy that got closest was Esteban Ocon, maybe even Sergio Perez on Nikita Mazepin, but no overtakes doing so far. Ted, down to you.
I can hear some wheel guns being practiced in the pit lane, but it's so early for a pit stop. We'll see what Vettel makes of it. Maybe he had a cause to come in so soon, but yeah, they wanted to get to at least lap 25 on these tyres, and maybe more on the ones that Lando Norris is on, but still he can't get past Lance Stroll, as you can see. Alonso, the old fox, has been told by his team, look, Esteban behind, your teammate is quicker. He says, oh, well, I could go quicker. I'm just trying to protect my tyres, not getting too close to Carlos Sainz ahead. See, he thought that one through, hadn't he?
He might have used it a couple of times in his career before. As down the straights, we can see George Russell leading Lance Stroll, leading Lando Norris and Yuki Tsunoda, the car at the rear of this particular quartet. Decent little tussle emerging between George Russell and Lance Stroll. Takes me back to the days when those two were battling it out for the Formula 3 Euro Series title that Stroll won that particular year, but they were very close championship rivals that particular season.
Okay, Lando, so we still think plan B, be patient, our time will come.
This is the thing, it's because it is difficult to overtake. The cars in front can back them up. They can look after the tyres. A car behind is always going to damage his tyres more because in the dirty air, going to produce more understeer maybe on the turn-in, and the rear end's not going to be as planted on exit. So, and also the driver behind's getting frustrated, which is the worst thing possible.
The thoughts, just see Nicholas Latifi on track. The car in front of him is Nikita Mazepin, who dives down the inside. So Latifi thinks, fine, I'll go the long way round, faster speed, round the banking. There you go. That's how you overtake at Zandvoort. Nicholas Latifi.
That is a wonderful move, I must say. And that's how you do it at Zandvoort. It's round the outside most of the time on these bank corners. That's what makes it such good racing.
I've got people singing in my ears round the outside now, and I think they've been joined by millions around the world, quite frankly. Any thoughts, by the way, that Sergio Perez might be in a position to hold up the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton? Forget that. He's lapping pretty rapidly as it stands at a 1:15.2, and that's on the par with Verstappen's pace out in front. And Verstappen and Hamilton both lapping within a tenth of a second of each other. So is this an indication that Verstappen might do 2-2, or Verstappen's just got enough pace that he can do that and still go for a one-stop?
Yeah, I think that the team are obviously feeding him all the information of what Lewis is doing. He's the only man of interest for Max right now. They'll be giving him the lap times, and he'll probably be going to those lap times. Whether that's going to be enough to stay on a one stop, because he is pushing those tyres harder, or maybe he'll have to go to the two-stop like Lewis if Lewis is going two-stop. We still don't know.
Is that an easy thing to do? If you're told we want 1:15.0s, 1:14.9s, is it an easy thing for an experienced driver to drive to that time or not?
It is, because you have a plus-minus on the dash. You know, your best lap time of the race might have been a 14.5, and then plus 5 tenths is where you need to be when you cross that finish line. And it updates through every corner of the lap, so you know exactly how close you are to your fastest lap time.
And then in the practice sessions, as you build up to the Grand Prix, you work out where you can push or ease back at certain corners.
Exactly, and if you're having to save fuel or look after the brakes, you would be lifting off early into the corners, but using, being more aggressive with the tyres on the exit to make up that time.
Karun, let's head over to you.
Yeah, Crofty, I think Mercedes have had a bit of a rethink on their plan here. They asked both Lewis and Valtteri to update the tyre switch, and I wonder if, having done a couple of laps at a higher pace and realized even when they went for it, they were only 2 or 3 tenths quicker than Max, maybe they're not quite quick enough to make a two-stop work. We'll have to say the gap, by the way, has now opened up for Hamilton to just about, maybe needs another lap to get out ahead of Gasly if he does want to pit. That is what you guys were talking about before. He doesn't want to get stuck behind Gasly. He's about a lap away from clearing the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, if you look at the gap between Hamilton and Gasly, you're absolutely spot on. It has opened up nicely as Sergio Perez once again goes for a move on Nikita Mazepin. Into the chicane he goes, and he does make his way finally past the Haas and up into 17th place. Long afternoon ahead for Sergio Perez, but we've seen him come from last to first in the past. That's how he picked up his first Grand Prix win.
Yeah, and that was a lovely dummy, I would have said, into that chicane. Nicely placed down the inside, not the easiest place to overtake. The smallest mistake, a little lock up and you're through the gravel, so great move by Checo.
So, one stop, two stop. Have Mercedes switched for a second time their intended strategy? Has it in any way affected the way Red Bull are running their race? As it stands at the moment, 3.5 seconds between Verstappen and Hamilton on lap 17, and we're watching the battle for 11th place, which is currently held by George Russell. He makes his way through turn 8 where his teammates, Nicholas Latifi, went off in qualifying yesterday. One of 2 red flags brought out by both Williams drivers, crashing quite some speed during that qualifying session. On the fringes of the points here, George Russell, but it's a long afternoon ahead before we start thinking about points and successive races for the Williams driver, who picked, of course, his first podium of this entire career at Williams last weekend. His first podium of his entire career, full stop, albeit in the race that wasn't really a race at Spa.
And we have menu dash position 6 when you can.
Repeat, man.
Dash position 6. Dash 6.
What's menu dash position 6? Lunch? Dinner? Not quite sure.
Probably not.
Lewis on the last lap at the fastest first sector of the lap, and that is mostly long corners, so he is pushing. He's not cruising, so he is not taking it easy, let's say.
Certainly not. So positions gained and lost then at the start of this race.
Okay, well, so at this pace, we're not going to interact with the leaders.
Alonso picking up places, as you would have seen, and that was quite a message to Valtteri Bottas. Thinly disguised message to say, Valtteri, put your foot down.
That really hurts as a driver. You know, you're on lap 18 of 72 and you've already been told you're not going to be fighting for the win. Yeah, it's a tough one, that, but his pace doesn't seem to be there. He's already 7 seconds behind his teammate, so almost half a second a lap slower, 4 tenths a lap slower than Lewis. So It's not been best, but then he might be on a different strategy.
Well, he might, but he's not going to interact with the leaders, says the message, even with that strategy taken into account, which Mercedes, of course, would know. It's the sort of thing that rather justifies the expected decision to come within the next 7 days or so of George Russell going to Mercedes for next season.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, Valtteri's had some fantastic moments in his career at Mercedes, some amazing pole positions and victories, but he just doesn't have the consistency of someone like Lewis. Well, not many people do.
Expect a raft of announcements in the next 7 days, including George Russell to Mercedes, which is the expected decision there. Valtteri Bottas to Alfa Romeo, and potentially in the next week or so, Alex Albon to Williams. That deal looking a little bit better now after Toto Wolff, and he admitted that himself, came out and said, I don't really want him going there if he's still got attachments to Red Bull. I wouldn't be too happy. A Red Bull driver driving for one of our customer teams. Karun, to you.
Yeah, some really interesting radio conversations. Hamilton's getting a whole load of instructions, guys, from the pit wall about HPP engine settings. We see Perez up against Latifi in the DRS zone towards the chicane. Not quite going to get a move. Yes, he does, actually, around the outside. Great move by Checo Perez at DRS. But yeah, Hamilton getting lots of instructions there. But I think he's struggling to hear on the radio. All that we hear from him is repeat, repeat. He's really struggling. Bottas, by the way, they asked him, Crofty, before you heard that radio message, what pace can you do? Can you get to a 15.1? And he just said, no, that's it. So, yeah, it's not looking great for him today.
No, not at all. Let's have a look at this once again, gents. And Sergio Perez and Nicholas Latifi thought he had the upper hand going through turn 10. Latifi came back at him.
He did, and this is actually a really nice move as well. It's nicer to be on the outside here because you do have the clean track, no marbles, which you'll have on the inside. But it's a brave move, but he has to take brave moves with where he started the race, and obviously with that early pit stop. But Checo is great at this. He is great at fighting through the field. It's a shame he puts himself in that position.
Exactly.
And gap to Verstappen at 3.7. Last lap at 15.3.
Repeat, man, repeat.
The Dutch fans making that much noise that Lewis Hamilton can't hear the team radio quite as well. In that particular part of the track, there aren't grandstands, but that would have been a delayed message, and he might be going down the main straight, which is a very noisy place indeed this weekend, as Max Verstappen gets past the Haas of Nikita Mazepin, and Lewis Hamilton has got a couple of cars now in between himself and the race leader and his championship rival, Mazepin and Sebastian Vettel, who have both come in for their first pit stop of this race. Perez has also pitted after flat spotting his tyres, and we're on board now with Sergio Perez. Robert Kubica is the car ahead of him. Kubica deputising for Kimi Raikkonen, who tested positive for COVID. Kubica in his first race since Abu Dhabi 2019, and getting overtaken there by Sergio Perez, who's up into 15th, and in comes Lewis Hamilton for his first stop of the race. And I say first stop of the race because I don't expect those medium tyres to go between now and the end of 72 laps. So that decision to go to a two-stop strategy now seems to have been taken by Mercedes, and he's got clean air, making his way out on that inside line by the Paddock Club. Lewis Hamilton out onto the track, well ahead of Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, nice clear track in front of him, but you know he's chosen his direction now in this race. Here we come into the pit stop.
So tight, isn't it?
It's so tight, and it was a reasonably slow pit stop. That front right was the issue.
Yeah. Just a little bit too slow. 3.6 second stop. He's probably lost a second there in the pit lane. Ted, to you.
Yeah, that was messy by Mercedes' high standards. But if Hamilton couldn't have closed on Max Verstappen on his previous set of tyres, then, well, they'll be looking for more performance on this yellow medium tyre. We have seen that, haven't we, Crofty? They did do one of the qualifying sessions. Aha! Max is going to react. That's all he has to do today, just cover Lewis.
I was going to ask the question, do they cover Lewis Hamilton and respond? And that's exactly what Red Bull are doing. And if you think Mercedes' pit box is tight, well, it's even tighter for Max Verstappen. But in he comes, 3.6 seconds. Lewis Hamilton was stationary, 2.7 seconds. Max Verstappen was stationary, so Red Bull winning the pit stop battle on this occasion as well.
Yeah, they are, but still not such a quick pit stop for the Red Bull. Obviously, they're trying to keep calm, but it just shows you this tighter pit lane. It definitely is a little bit more stressful for the teams.
It is. I tell you what, they had to do that. They had to respond straight away if they were going to cover off Lewis Hamilton, because he went purple middle, purple final sector, and was about a second quicker through the middle part of the lap, Lewis Hamilton, on these fresher tyres, which are nicely warmed up, but you can just see Max Verstappen in the distance. He should be long enough clear, but I tell you what, that 0.9 of a second difference in the pit stops, how crucial could that be come the end of this race?
Yeah, very crucial. It's amazing, actually, how much he's caught him, because he's got those nice warm tyres, and obviously newer when he put them on than Max's tyres before he pitted. But the issue that Max has now, he's 10 seconds behind a Mercedes. Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, it's a big gap, isn't it? Hamilton still pounding in those purple sectors. Valtteri Bottas leads from Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. We can bring in Christian Horner from the Red Bull pit wall. Christian, I'm assuming that was a no-brainer for you guys. If Lewis pitted, you had to cover him off.
Yeah, exactly that. So, you know, the guys got the car turned around. It's a tight entry into the pit box here as well. So, the most important thing was to keep track position to Lewis.
So far on the soft tyres, you had a distinct pace advantage to the Mercedes. Do you get worried now? Because sometimes the medium tyres interact differently with your cars, don't they?
Yeah, all compounds behave differently. So it's just a matter of obviously bringing the tyres in nice and easily, and they've probably got to go quite a long way. So, of course, they've got Valtteri ahead of us, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him.
Well, I think we know what they're going to do with him, correct? I think they'll be sticking him on a one-stop.
Yeah, thanks for that. You know, it's going to be interesting. I think the two-stop looks a quicker race, so if they're doing that, that's obviously tactically, but you know, the best thing we've got to do is pass them on the track.
Thanks, Christian. We'll be back with you in a little while. So pit stops for Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. As you can see, they now run second and third, and the gap to Valtteri Bottas, that was 10 seconds, now down to about 8 seconds.
What do they think? You need 2.1 seconds pace advantage on the car in front to actually make a move. Well, he kind of has that right now.
Yes, he does. But it's where on the track he gets to Valtteri Bottas. If it's down the straight, then, yeah, he's got that pace advantage. He can overtake into turn one. But I tell you what, from turn 3 onwards, there's not many overtaking spots till he gets to the chicane.
It's one of those things as well, isn't it? If you catch them right, and you can make the move straight away, but if you catch them a little bit wrong and you sit behind him for half a lap, that's you done. You know, then it's very, very difficult to overtake. So you get into that rhythm behind them. But also offline, there's a lot of marbles already, only 24 laps in.
And you don't want to be picking up marbles on your tyres, although Sergio Perez doesn't care much, because once again, at the chicane, he makes an overtaking move, this time on Yuki Tsunoda. Perez up to 14th. Oh, if he hadn't have been knocked out in Q1 yesterday, what could Sergio Perez have been doing on this track?
Well, it's just wonderful to see the amount of overtaking moves that we're seeing from Checo. He's fully on it, which is really nice to see. If he's at the front, obviously he wouldn't be making those moves because he wouldn't have the tyre advantage that he has now compared to his competitors.
Talking of tyre advantage, just to point out here that Mercedes do have an extra set of the medium tyres that they can use in this race. They used mediums, but they've got an extra set over Red Bull, who, if they are stopping again, are going to have to go soft or hard.
Yeah, I think they'd probably go soft. Well, we'll see how long the medium tyre goes for.
Last set was rear left limited, rear left, but as expected.
Powered by AWS, the battle forecast, striking distance on Valtteri Bottas in 3 laps for Max Verstappen. Overtake difficulty. It seems pretty easy according to that graphic, but we shall see as the Ferrari pit crew now get ready and get their hoses out of the way for Pierre Gasly to make his pit stop in this race, or his first pit stop, and to go onto the medium compound tyres. It's lap 25 then of 72 here for the Dutch Grand Prix, and so far it's not been too bad for the home favourite Max Verstappen. He might be in second place at the moment, but he has a pace advantage over his championship rival Lewis Hamilton, about 2 seconds clear as it stands, with Valtteri Bottas leading this race because he hasn't come into the pits as yet. We're seeing a few more pit stops. Pierre Gasly has just come in after running a decent, solid first stint, and he drops down into 7th. Sergio Perez, who flat-spotted his tyres in the opening couple of laps, is starting to make his way back up through the field again, and tyre performance powered by AWS, this graphic, Jensen, showing why Valtteri Bottas says he's got vibrations.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the degradation on the left front and rear. I don't know if you heard the message, but to Lewis from Pete Bonington, his engineer, saying that the left rear is the limitation on the first set of tyres on the softs. Probably going to be very similar on the mediums, I'm thinking. Interestingly, after Ocon's comments earlier on that Fernando isn't fast, Fernando's pulled 6 seconds on him now.
That wily old fox, Ted Kravitz. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, the tyres are definitely dropping a bit more, but I guess they'll do a few laps.
Well, Mercedes wanted to do a few more laps and try and hold up Max Verstappen.
Yeah, sorry, Valtteri, if you weren't fast enough to get involved with the Max and Lewis show, we're going to have to put you on a one-stop and see what you can do. Lewis has great pace on these yellow tyres, isn't he, Crockley?
Yeah.
Really good pace on the medium tyres. So we've seen Pierre Gasly into the pits. That's given Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz an opportunity. They can only go longer now and try and overcut the AlphaTauri of Gasly. Try to go longer and do some good laps, but I think Gasly will have that covered. He's had great pace, Gasly, hasn't he? Looking good value for P4 eventually when the Ferraris, cars ahead of him, stop.
And that gap between Verstappen and Hamilton has now come down to 1.2 seconds on the last lap, and Hamilton just behind Sebastian Vettel, now just ahead of Sebastian Vettel, maybe getting a bit of DRS to help him down the straights.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if Max is holding back a little bit, because the worst thing for Max is being stuck behind Valtteri, because it's definitely going to give Lewis more of an opportunity. So he might be playing a bit of a game here.
Well, now that the car directly behind him is Lewis Hamilton, if he is holding back, Hamilton's going to have to start to run in the dirty air covered by the Red Bull.
Exactly, yes. There's so many possibilities, and that's why we love this. There's so many options for the strategy, and you know, possibly using Valtteri Bottas, not saying they are, but possibly. If they are, Max knows that, and he will be backing up Lewis a little bit because he doesn't want to get up behind Valtteri. He wants Valtteri's tyres to disappear.
Okay, so Bottas in free air, 15.8. 15.8. He is the car ahead. It's going to be absolutely critical to catch and pass if we can.
If we can. Does Max Verstappen, I'd love to hear the response from Max Verstappen. Does he then tell Gianpiero Lambiase, well, actually, I don't think I can catch him. I might be better off sitting where I am?
Yes, but he won't say that on the radio, I don't think. But,
that gives the game away a bit too much.
It's just an added stress again. You know, when they had such pace coming into this weekend, Red Bull, and Max is lapping, qualifying, and the pace that he had at the start of the race, suddenly it's really stressful for him because he's up behind Lewis Hamilton, his main rival's teammate.
And that's why you see the feet and the toes twitching and tapping on the pit wall throughout this race, throughout week after week of Formula One racing. It's nervous, it's stressful for the team because there's nothing they can do to affect the way that the driver is driving out there, but it is a team sport and they want to help him as much as they can. That is Gianpiero Lambiase, Max Verstappen's race engineer, writing down some instructions there for the mechanics, maybe at the pit crew for the pit stop. Not quite sure, as Pierre position swapping all the time. Perez now behind Norris as people start to pit. Giovinazzi and Russell and Stroll, and I think Pierre Gasly has now got Fernando Alonso. As out comes George Russell right behind car number 99, Antonio Giovinazzi. Almost got him at the pit stop.
Yeah, that's the fight for P10 for that final point, so an important one.
So this is how Fernando Alonso got overtaken by Pierre Gasly, all the way around the outside once again on fresher tyres, Pierre Gasly, and well, he's got the grip out of the corner.
Yeah, he has, but I mean, why don't we learn from this? Why don't we just run wider through the corners when we're the car in front? But it just feels wrong. It feels wrong to be taking a wide line to cover your line for the next corner.
So this is for the race win, so you're defending. I'll leave you to it.
Right.
It's interesting because his last comment was, "You're not in the fight for the win."
But not necessarily the win for Valtteri Bottas. This is the race win for Verstappen or for Hamilton, or is it for Bottas? if he's going longer on a one-stop, do Mercedes think that could be the best way to run this race now? All will be revealed at the end of 72 laps. But I tell you what, Max Verstappen has caught Valtteri Bottas at a good time here with DRS usage down the main straight if he can make this move into turn 1. And he's going to be a bit too far back to make this move into turn 1, which could now see Max Verstappen getting held up a bit by Valtteri Bottas throughout the rest of this lap. Really, turn 1 is the big overtaking opportunity into the chicane at turn 11. Yeah, there's a chance there as well. But now Verstappen's going to be unsettled. He's going to be held up by that Mercedes car in front, struggling on his tyres, but going long for a one-stop race.
Yeah, and it's also tricky for Max because he doesn't want to push his tyres too hard to damage those rears. Lewis might be holding back and looking after his tyres for later in the race, whereas Max is pushing this hard in the dirty air behind the race leader, Valtteri.
So the view from Valtteri Bottas's Mercedes. Former winner here, the only man in consecutive years to win the F3 Masters at Zandvoort, up against the man who also has won in the junior formula here in the F3 Masters 2014 for Max Verstappen, and Valtteri Bottas now under big pressure
He ran
from
wide.
that Red Bull.
He ran wide through the entry to the chicane there, which would have put him on the back foot. And look how close Max is now. Yeah. This is his opportunity.
But look how close Lewis is as well. Valtteri has done a sterling job here to try and hold up Max Verstappen. He's not going to hold him up any longer, because with DRS, there he goes. And you can hear the roar from the Dutch Lions in the grandstands, but you can also see the marbles that are being flicked up into the air when he went offline. Now, going offline is Valtteri Bottas to let Lewis Hamilton through. And the upshot of the last 5 or so laps is a 3.5-second advantage for Max Verstappen over Lewis Hamilton is now down to just 7/10.
And the biggest issue here is he had to go offline to overtake Valtteri, so he got all those dirty marbles along the pit straight on his tyres, and it takes a few corners to get rid of that.
Well, we can see it once again coming off the banking. He's got the speed, he's got the grip, he's got the fresher tyres, but now he starts to flick up a lot of marbles. Don't really see it from that camera angle.
That's mega. Let's go.
That's a great message, isn't it? That's mega, let's go. But yeah, look at the fans as well, going crazy for that, as you would expect. But look at the marbles that are being flicked up in Lewis's face from Max in front on the inside line.
And Lewis Hamilton let by and passed his teammate a lot easier than Max Verstappen had found it. So for about 2 laps, Valtteri held him up. That's the strategy call Mercedes were able to make. However, Red Bull still have a pace advantage, and look at the gap now. It's over 1.5 seconds. So by the time they get to the next DRS zone, then there's nothing that Mercedes can do to use that DRS because he's too far clear. Bottas now finally comes in, and the hope is they'll get out ahead of Charles Leclerc, and they should easily get out ahead of Charles Leclerc, keeping Valtteri Bottas in 3rd place. The top 3 here have a distinct pace advantage to the rest.
Yeah, so even though he was left up for way too long, he's still going to come out 3rd, and if everything goes to plan, he'll still have a step on the podium. But it's a disappointing step on the podium for any driver.
The key now for Valtteri Bottas is he's back out in the race on the medium tyres. Can he go to the end of this race?
He's getting super lucky with traffic there.
I'm not sure that's true. Maybe with other traffic, but not behind Valtteri Bottas.
Not at all. Although calling the race leader traffic is quite a claim there, Jensen Button.
Well, he was though, wasn't he? I mean, but yeah, this is also a circuit. I get what Lewis is saying. This is a circuit that you can really catch traffic in a good place or in a really bad place through those high-speed corners. There's just no way of letting a car behind past.
Right, so Bottas comes in on lap 32 to change his tyres. Pirelli say the medium can do about 35 laps. So that gets us to 67 laps. Now, if there's a safety car, bingo, Valtteri's in very good position because he doesn't have to pit again. But can he stretch it out, make a one-stop work, and Lewis all over the place through the banking in turn 3, and crucially maintain a gap of about 20 seconds to Verstappen and Hamilton, who we think do have to pit again.
Yeah, so he might have to do the move again on Valtteri.
Yeah.
So, but to be fair, their pace is so much better, it seems, than Valtteri. But just going back to what we just saw on board there with Lewis through turn 2, that snap of oversteer on the exit, that's what called Sainz out in practice yesterday morning in FP3. That was a bit of a moment, and you don't want to be doing that too often, and it's also going to damage that rear left. So he is struggling a little bit with that rear left.
Ted, let's head down to you.
The reason Hamilton is saying that Max has got lucky with traffic is that Hamilton, has not been lucky. When he came out from the pits, Crofty, he came out and Alonso actually got ahead of him, or was ahead of him, up into the safety line. So Alonso was in front.
2 seconds.
So don't need to kill the tires, but we need to close to his window.
Yeah, so Alonso exiting the pits actually squeezed Hamilton. So Hamilton did lose a bit of time with Alonso compared to, maybe that's what he's saying. Just quickly on Lando Norris, as you can see on your screen, P8. So that fight in front of him sorted itself out. Russell and Lance Stroll pitted at the same time, which was good for George. Not so great for Lance if he wants to get past the Williams, but it has now released Lando to show what he can do.
I'll tell you some George Russell news in a moment, Ted, as we actually watch him going around the outside of Robert Kubica into turn 1. The Williams special advisor next to me rather likes that particular move.
I like special advisor. It's actually senior advisor,
okay,
but I'll take special any day.
You're always special to me, you know that. And we see Kubica being passed by Lance Stroll as well. The bad news for George Russell is that he's got a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So he might be ahead on the track at the moment of Lance Stroll, but he's got a 5-second pit penalty. 5-second penalty will either be added to his time at the end of this race, or will be added to the time before they can work on his car if he's coming into the pits again, as Fernando Alonso makes his way out of the pits. And I'm watching now to see where his teammate Esteban Ocon is. Ocon making his way around turn 1 and behind Fernando Alonso. There he is, just in the background. So both Alpines pitting, and Alonso still ahead of his teammate, which will be très frustrating for the Frenchman, I'm sure. Giovinazzi into the pits for a second time.
That's really early.
Yeah.
Very, very unusual strategy, but it's great to see so many overtaking moves around here. We didn't want to talk about it too much before the race, but it's not the easiest place to overtake. But there's been some really, really good moves around the outside, most of them. But yeah, great to see.
Don't want it to be impossible, but make it difficult. There's nothing wrong with that. Now here comes Charles Leclerc, his teammate Carlos Sainz going through turn 12 at the moment. Pierre Gasly makes his way around turn 1 and back into 4th place once more. And Leclerc comes out and have a nice, clean piece of track in front of him in which to get his foot down and try and close that gap.
It's always nice when you come out the pits and you've got that clean circuit so you can bed your tyres in as you want. Just jumping over to Bottas, he's 23 seconds behind his teammate, 25 seconds behind Max, so he is still in play to be in front when Max stops again. So they could use him to hold up Max and give Lewis an opportunity. Or Valtteri might actually still have a chance in this race.
And that's the key, but he needs to close that gap down a lot more. Good news for Bottas on the last lap. He was around about a second clear of Max Verstappen, about 8/10 clear of Lewis Hamilton. Mentioned Giovinazzi coming into the pits. He's come back out again on the hard compound tyre. That could be a very bold strategy call from Alfa Romeo. Hard tyre to the end of the race, get a safety car with others that we know are going to be stopping. Might promote you back into the top 10, Antonio. We shall see. Down to Ted.
He had a puncture, Crofty. He had to come in.
Oh, right. So,
yeah.
Thanks, Ted. That's right. But it was a good theory.
I would have told you earlier before you
but there was too much going on.
Before you did the Kravitz-style theory of good race strategy. But I only just got the text from Sauber. Sorry.
Oh, that was a really good idea as well.
Puncture. So that's ruined from great grid positions. Do terrible races come. Yeah. Unfortunately for Giovinazzi, had a puncture not too long after his first stop, and has now dropped down to 18th.
My CV is now not in the post, and I won't be applying for a strategy job at Alfa Romeo.
I think Ruth Boscombe's got it covered.
I think she's got it covered. Karoon, to you at race control.
They've gone on the radio to Valtteri Bottas saying, use the tyres. They've told him, basically, he's got a free stop, hasn't he, between him and Gasly. All they're interested in is getting him ahead of Max for when Max pits next. Max's tyres are 11 laps older than Bottas's, so we're going to assume, a safe assumption, he's going to pit earlier, and that's all they're trying to do. But a quick shout out to Lando Norris, who's having a great race, up into 7th place, still on that first set of tyres, but despite 35 laps on that set, his last lap, same pace as Daniel Ricciardo.
And we've got a yellow flag and a double yellow flag being waved in the first part of the lap, and it's for Sebastian Vettel, is it? As he had a bit of a spin going through turn 3, certainly going very slow as we pick him up with Nicholas Latifi, who's now ahead of him in 16th place. So I rather get the feeling we had a Vettel spinner at turn 3, but no damage I can see to the car. And it looks like he's avoided the barriers, which is good news.
And surprising in turn 3. Here we go. Oh, he's gone for the inside, lost the rear, but was able to collect it up. Oh, there's that Bottas. That was just
Bottas.
missed him.
Well, that's going to take a bit of time off Valtteri Bottas's charge towards Verstappen and Hamilton.
And a couple of years of his life.
He lost about 1.5 seconds, 1.5 seconds in that first sector because he was the car having to take evasive action. Where do you go? Where do you go? Normally you just head straight to the scene of where the car is, but Vettel was stopping a bit slower than you'd normally see.
Well, and then it rolled down, which was nice for Valtteri to get around the outside. But yeah, that 1.5 seconds could be crucial to the end of this race.
It certainly could. Everything is in the balance here. It's Max Verstappen that leads. We're on lap 38 out of 72. We have passed half race distance. But I think there's a lot to come. And it's about tyres, as it often is, Jensen. But he who looks after their tyres best will reap the reward.
I was just about to say that about Fernando Alonso and a knock-on Verstappen.
Okay, everything we've got for the next 4 or 5 laps, please, Max.
You know what they need? They need a Jensen Button out there.
I think he's going to pit in the next 4 or 5 laps. What do you think?
I think it's very possible. Karun?
Yes, I think they're now thinking about bringing this next round of stops in early, because actually the gap between Hamilton and Verstappen, 2.6, it's not an impossible gap for an undercut. They can put pressure if they make a faster pit stop. Both cars, I think, are thinking about their second stops early to cover off an undercut.
I just saw a Red Bull behind a Mercedes then, but it was Checo.
Yeah, this is not the overtake for the lead in any way, shape or form. That's Hamilton getting past Sergio Perez. Sergio is way down the field at the moment. Sadly, well, he's down in 8th place actually, but he is a lap down in this race. Might still score points from that 8th place, but I would expect him to be stopping again because he did come in rather early after flat spotting those tyres, the hard compound tyres that he was hoping to run for a lot longer. So you pick Max Verstappen first if you're Red Bull.
Keep his pace up, Max. This is mega. Got track position over Bottas as well.
And he's 3 seconds clear at Hamilton now, is extending that advantage out in front.
Hamilton's in.
Mercedes now respond by doing an early pit stop of their own. So Red Bull were thinking about it, and now before that gap gets too long, Mercedes have said we've got to get Hamilton in, and they're going to use that extra set of medium tyres that they've got over Red Bull. Red Bull haven't got another set of mediums to put on. So Hamilton, they found a gap to him, or they hope they found a gap to him, as Ricciardo now comes through, has...
Mistake.
So now Hamilton's going to have to pick his way through traffic here as he comes out side by side with Lance Stroll, who backs off because he's been lapped.
You've had great pace, great pace. Keep pushing.
But I think they felt they'd get him out ahead of Ricciardo there and he wouldn't have to fight his way through the back markers.
I don't think they thought they'd get him out in front of Ricciardo, but they had to give it a go because Max will pit when he clears Ricciardo. Right. And he's 2 seconds in front of Lewis, so they had to give it a go.
Why would you pit me with these guys, man?
Yeah, the thing is, Max can pit now and he's clear of Ricciardo because he's got that pace advantage. Well, they've rolled the dice again, have Mercedes, and it's not quite worked for them. But Max Verstappen, as I mentioned, hasn't got a set of medium tyres to put on. So it's a set of hard tyres that are going on. Now, more durability, obviously, with a hard compound tyre, but you'd normally associate a pace difference, mediums to hards.
Yeah, we saw Checo struggling on that tyre, locking up into turn 1, massive flat spot. So it's not an easy tyre to get temperature into it, but he does have a good gap on Lewis. But they should have told Lewis on the radio what they were doing, and you know, so he could relax, and he knew he had to get past those cars. It was going to cost him a bit of time, but it was an opportunity.
So the next few laps don't go anywhere just yet, because this could get quite interesting. New hards for Max Verstappen. used mediums for Lewis Hamilton, what proved to be the fastest tyre, and has not keeping another set of mediums for this race. Has that worked to Mercedes' advantage? Scrubbed set of mediums, I'm told, so they've not been used very much.
So there's Lewis's first sector on this set of tyres. He's gone purple, the best first sector of anyone in the race. And just about to come through the second sector, which I'm sure will also be purple.
We shall see. It is for Verstappen, 25-1. He's getting cheers from the grandstand every time he goes through there. Hamilton does look to be just a little bit closer, but still with work to do to try and gain ground. Valtteri Bottas runs in third, 5 seconds now behind Hamilton after the front two pitted for a second time. Gasly in fourth, then comes Leclerc and Sainz on the hards.
Did the hard tyre look good for other people?
Looks like a reasonable tyre on the Ferrari, yeah.
And they will have got data from Leclerc and Sainz looking at their lap times and making sure that it's still a decent tyre for Max to be on. Fastest lap of the race for Lewis Hamilton. He's 3.1 seconds behind at the end of lap 41. We've got another 31 to go, and Ted, down to you.
I can understand why Verstappen's asking that, because historically it hasn't been a great tyre for Red Bull. They do prefer the softer tyres, and this is the hardest of all the tyres that Pirelli bring here. This white-walled hard tyre, so I can understand Max is a bit concerned. Yes, it will easily get him to lap 72. Max is going to have to do a bit more work to make this one work. But this decision, as far as Mercedes was concerned, was made ages ago when they actually decided which tyres to ditch at the end of sessions, Crofty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Those two mediums to carry on into the race.
Yeah,
they love that medium tyre.
Could yet pay off. Let's pay tribute to Lando Norris, who on lap 42 is still running on the set of medium tyres he started this race on.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job. Tough day for him yesterday. He's normally really good in qualifying, and it's the first time this year he hasn't been in Q3, so he's fighting his way through and hasn't pitted yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how many more laps he can go for.
Well, they're hoping now, maybe for a safety car, cut down that pit lane loss and get Lando in and out and up to an unlikely points finish.
He's actually on the same strategy as Perez, who's behind him. So those two are on similar strategies, because Perez pitted really early in the race because of the flat spot on his hards.
Yeah, Perez probably got about 5 laps in hand in terms of the tyre usage on Lando Norris as we ride on board with Lance Stroll. The car in front of him is George Russell. Don't forget, George Russell has a 5-second penalty to be added to his race time or to his next pit stop. 8 laps, I'm being told. Fresher tyres for Sergio Perez over Lando Norris, which is 1.2 second gap between the two of them at the moment. Shows you how well Lando is driving if he can maintain that before he really does have to come in to the pits. Has Lance Stroll got a pace advantage in his battle with George Russell? We shall see as they go into turn 1 as Lando Norris comes into the pits, and Nikita Mazepin also into the pits for Mazepin. This will be his last venture into the pits in this race. I think he's been retired from this race. He was running down in 19th place. Well, at the moment, 0.4 of a second on the last lap. Lewis Hamilton was slower than Max Verstappen, as we see Lando Norris pitting, coming back out in 11th and ahead of George Russell. Back to Peru.
Yeah, further to that radio message, Crofty, Lewis also saying he's not happy with his tyre choice. He thinks there's too many laps to be going on this tyre against the hard tyre of Max Verstappen. I think essentially he's saying we should have also gone on the hard tyre to allow me to attack us. That is the McLaren against George Russell there. So that is Norris on a fresh set of tyre. That was important for Norris because he's now come out right behind Ricciardo.
Yeah, and I think Daniel Ricciardo there rather helped matters because he was the car in front of George Russell and might just slow down enough to allow Norris to come through. Right, on board with George Russell. There's a lot of action around this track at the moment, albeit not much overtaking.
It's a damn long way to go on this tyre, man.
Yeah, copy that, Lewis. We'll be monitoring it.
Yeah, as soon as Max pumped in super fast laps on the first 2 laps of this hard tyre, you immediately know the hard tyre works, and it's probably the tyre to be on when you've got 30-odd laps to go.
I was just about to call Lewis Hamilton's bluff and go, yeah, it might be a long way to go in this tyre. It might not be the right choice, but you've just taken about 0.8 of a second out of Max's advantage. However, I think Max has just had to get past Alonso and Ocon and lap them.
Yeah, and Lewis is really good at looking after tyres. It's something he's definitely learnt over the years, and you know, if he's put in a sticky spot, he'll still get the best out of that tyre. So it's definitely not over yet, and traffic is obviously playing a big part right now.
Taking any credit for that at all from your years as teammates?
No, can't even remember being in F1. It was that long ago.
It wasn't really. I know we kid you about it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Pierre Gasly is in 4th place, and running a lonely race for Pierre Gasly. He won't care a dot, because it's another strong race for Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, Pierre, I mean, he's just been on it all year, hasn't he? Yeah. He's always got the best out of the car in qualifying, bringing in, you know, a big haul of points in a lot of races. So, yeah, a great job by him. We haven't really talked about him too much because he's just been out there on his own. 7 seconds in front of the 2 Ferraris.
There's still so much life left on that last tyre. I don't know why you rushed it.
Yeah, copy Lewis. We'll chat about it later.
Of course, he won't know the overview. Is this common for drivers that you think that was the wrong choice? I just need to tell the team now you made a mistake.
Well, you run through every strategy before the race, but there are sometimes things that you're not quite happy with. But I understand what they were trying to do, because the car in front always has an advantage when it comes to pit stops and lap traffic, because you know the gap that you have to that car when you're pitting. He's come out just in front of Ricciardo, whereas Lewis was never going to, so they had to take the risk of putting him into the traffic, hoping he would overtake those cars quickly, and that would make the difference.
And now Lewis Hamilton has got past the Alpines to lap them. That gap between Verstappen and Hamilton back up to 3.5 seconds.
I have a plastic bag in my front left brake. Have a look.
I'm sure he has now.
It's like paper more than plastic.
Yeah, if he's got bits of the plastic bag still in that brake duct, he hasn't got as much as he initially had, because it seemed to have shredded a bit. The upshot is, please don't bring plastic bags to a Formula 1 racetrack, because you know, sustainability, environment and all that. Right, Verstappen from Hamilton, Bottas from Gasly, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, Alonso, Ocon, and now Norris ahead of Daniel Ricciardo.
They've switched them.
Yes. So was that team orders?
Well, if he overtook him on the straight, it was made easy by Daniel, yes, because Daniel doesn't give up places easily.
Or was it just, I've got much fresher tyres there, I can get past quite easily.
So Lando thanked the team, so yes, it's team orders. Interestingly, you have the 2 Ferraris driving around quite a similar pace. You've got 2 Alpines and the 2 McLarens. The Alpines are really interesting. I've watched them all the way through the race, and Esteban Ocon was complaining at the beginning of the race that Fernando isn't quick enough, basically let me by, and then Fernando pulled out a 6-second gap. They pitted. Esteban is right behind Fernando again, and I'm sure saying the same thing, but it's just very different how they're going about this race. Fernando's really looking up to the tyres, not pushing at the beginning, and he's stronger at the end. Ocon doing the opposite. It's great to see and feel the different views from these drivers of how this race should be run.
McLaren have certainly got their strategy right in terms of Lando Norris here, though, because he's jumped up into the points, and by going very, very long with that first stint, has done himself a huge amount of favours. He will have much fresher tyres than anyone else in the latter stages of this race, and is showing that at the moment. So how do Alpine, I wonder, respond with that? If Ocon keeps saying I'm the faster car, do they need Ocon ahead of Alonso to actually try and pull Alonso a bit further clear of Lando Norris behind?
I'm not going to make it to the end on these tyres.
If and when Fernando Alonso gets that much closer. Lewis Hamilton is going through a bit of agony at the moment. And we've heard this before, but then he kind of drives through the pain a little bit, and suddenly everything's okay again. One thing is for sure, he's not making a dent in that advantage that Verstappen's got. No,
and the problem is he's come out onto the track and he's seen that Max can make that hard tyre work as well. So, you know, I do love it that we have drivers that are emotional, and they're letting us know their feelings, or not letting us know, but letting the team know their feelings, and we get to hear it. It must be tough for Lewis in that position.
Perez pits, and that frees Alonso and Ocon and Norris behind them eventually. So let's see what this pit stop is like for Sergio Perez. As out it comes, 2.5 seconds. We are seeing slower pit stops with this new directive by just a few tenths. And now he can go to the end of the race and should come out in about 11th place. But here's the battle between George Russell and Lance Stroll. And is Perez going to be in the middle of that? He is going to be right in the middle of that. So Russell, ahead of Perez, was obviously told to put the hammer down by the Williams team because they could see what Red Bull were up to. And it's kept 11th place then for George Russell. Perez has got some overtaking to do. Ted, down to you.
Of course, Hamilton doesn't have any choice. What are the team going to say? Well, Lewis, we can't pit again. What are we going to do? Drop behind Valtteri Bottas? So he just has to stay with it. Maybe the only chance if Hamilton really wants a new set of tyres is to wait and see if there's a safety car, I suppose. But then Verstappen will pit again as well to cover him. So there's no option, is there, Crofty? No. Hamilton would know that. So I don't really know what he hopes to say. But, sorry, go on.
Ted, you've not got a timing screen down with you. I'm going to ask you a question at the moment. But first and foremost, Sergio Perez, for the third time this afternoon, is making an overtake down at the chicane, and it's another successful one. George Russell down to 12th, Perez up to 11th. You've not got a timing screen. Guess who's just set the fastest lap of the race, Ted?
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Sunday wouldn't be Sunday. And if you're playing your Sunday Sky F1 race bingo, sorry, Martin Brundle's not here to do your various catchphrases. He'll be back at Monza. But, yeah, Lewis complaining about his tyres when they're only 8 laps old would kind of be on there somewhere. But, hey, anyway.
And then setting a fastest lap. Yes, for the full house double in the bingo.
But you're talking about the Alpines we're watching now. What it's meant is that Leclerc and Sainz have been given a bit of an unchallenged race, haven't they? The Ferraris haven't been challenged by the Alpines behind them. They can't get close to Gasly, so that's stayed static.
2 seconds, 10.
Oh, Yuki.
No power. And we need to retire, stop in front of the garage.
Well, it started off badly, Yuki's weekend, didn't it, Crofty? The first one to spin in FP1, and it's ended badly. We'll hope for a better race for him at home in Monza next time. But, yeah, Lando Norris has just got to getting closer and closer to Ocon and Alonso, bit by bit.
Yes, first to spin, second to retire after Nikita Mazepin with hydraulic issues. This is his teammate Mick Schumacher locking up. You don't want to do that too often into the chicane, kicking up a bit of dust and bringing some gravel onto the track as well. Karun, let's head to you.
Yeah, just looking at the gaps and listening to the radio here, Bottas's pace is just nowhere compared to the top two. Hamilton's playing an interesting game here, Crofty, isn't he? I mean, on one hand, we have to think about Norris did 42 laps, but could Mercedes do a 3-stop with Lewis? I mean, is that what they're looking at? There's a big enough gap between Hamilton and Gasly, so he'll only drop behind Bottas. Could they really be thinking of a 3-stop?
And hoping for a safety car, because are there enough laps for Lewis to charge down?
They're just so fast, man.
Yeah. What would be a 25-second gap if he did pit again?
Yeah, I mean, he says they're so fast, but Lewis has been quicker the last couple of laps, so I guess they are giving it their all. You know, he doesn't look like he's taking it easy out there, and to pump him the fastest lap of the race, and now he's just in a purple sector on this lap, you'd think that they are thinking possibly about a 3-stop. When was the last time we had a 3-stop in Formula 1?
There's a very good question. I will find a 3-stop to win a race.
Yes.
Right, I'll find it out for you in a moment. We are looking into it right now as Bottas goes past Fernando Alonso, and that's not for position, that is lapping. The gap now 2.5 seconds between Verstappen and Hamilton. He thinks Red Bull are fast. I think this race is fast. It's gone by in a blur.
Killing my tyres, trying to keep up.
Good copy, stand by.
I mean, if they did do a 3-stop, and he will have a massive pace advantage if he can put the soft tyres on. I don't know how old his best set of soft tyres are, but 0. 3 laps old. I think he'll have great pace on that tyre at the end of this race when the circuit's gripped up, low fuel. So there's every opportunity with the 3-stop he could still challenge Max.
What's Perez doing at the moment? Of course, he's on the soft tyres, a 1:13.5 on his last lap, Sergio Perez, but he's going quicker on this particular lap. Has to be said, though, that these mediums are working quite nicely for Hamilton at the moment, and he is closing that gap, but there's always that half suspicion that Verstappen is just easing things down a bit out in front and just monitoring the situation.
Yeah, or maybe he's not. Lewis has found a he's been very consistent with his lap times and putting in some great sectors. So maybe it's just working for him now, the tyre. Maybe the degradation will be okay. As you said, Karun, Lando did 42 laps on a medium tyre. Lewis only has to do 36, and the circuit is in much better condition than it was at the start of the race for Lewis.
And the car much lighter as well. Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort. We've waited a long time, and it's giving us a fast and frenetic race. Strategic battles and headaches on the pit wall throughout the 53 laps, but it's Verstappen, Hamilton and Bottas the 1, 2, 3, as it was off the grid. Gasly, Leclerc and Sainz started 4th, 5th and 6th as well.
Up to Perez, 1 second. Let's try and hold him up. Yeah, let's go, Daniel. Let's go. You're going to hold Perez up here.
Because that will really help your teammate if you can.
Yeah, there's a lot of teamwork going on here, which is nice to see. Tough for the driver that's giving it, though. But Norris, the last lap, he took a second out of Ocon in front of him. He's only 3.3 seconds behind. He is coming for the Alpines.
I just want it. If Ocon is the faster car of the 2 Alpines, if they can find a way to let him pass down the straight without slowing Alonso down, and then maybe use some DRS for Alonso to keep him with Ocon, then it cuts off the threat of faster cars behind for a bit longer.
I think they've just got to hurry up. Fernando's just done his quickest lap of the race, a 14.9, half a second up on Ocon. So he's it's time to switch it on. He knows that Norris is coming.
So Alonso and Ocon 7th and 8th at the moment. Fernando Alonso starting this race in 9th. Esteban Ocon starting 8th, where he currently remains. Lando Norris started this race 13th after missing out on Q3 and is in the points. His teammate Daniel Ricciardo started 10th, continues to be 10th, and Sergio Perez started from the pit lane and is desperate for some points here. This is the sight from on board with Sergio Perez. This is orange everywhere you look here this weekend, and for him at the moment it's papaya orange.
It is. Lewis is 1.4 behind Max, so close to the 1 second needed to be the DRS.
Okay, let's update priority now. So we'll try and get to the end of the race on these tyres, take something at the end for the fastest lap.
Don't race. I'm pushing to close this gap, man. Come on.
Okay, copy that, Lewis. Yeah, we're happy with what you're doing then. So let's just crack on.
Slow down. I don't want to slow down. I'm racing. Okay, don't slow down. Is that the translation?
I love that. All this strategy, and then, actually, I'm going to drive fast. Well, actually, yeah, you should drive fast because you're doing a great job, Lewis.
Because what Pete Bonington's got is a lot of people in his ears monitoring sensors on the tyres, telling him information that actually might be an idea to try and slow your driver down a bit. Sergio Perez has got past Daniel Ricciardo. He is 10th. Ricciardo didn't hold him up for too much longer, quickly down to 10.
It was an absolutely very funny and shameless, quite shameless message to Ricciardo, saying, right, Perez is behind us, we're going to hold him up. Daniel, you are going to hold Perez up. So hold him up, okay? Hold him up. Maybe all's fair in love in Formula One.
Absolutely. Hamilton has DRS down the main straight to try and get past Robert Kubica, and lapping Robert Kubica, goes down the inside and has now cleared yet another back marker. Back markers could play a part in this, and Verstappen has got Mick Schumacher, Giovinazzi and Latifi not too far ahead of him. He'll be lapping those in about a lap and a half's time.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm straight back on this battle at the front.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to hear the engineers. They have all the information, and they've done all the simulations. But Lewis wants to race, and that's what's great. And I think that's why we're loving this battle between Max and Lewis all the way through this year.
And this is Daniel Ricciardo being told to hold up Sergio Perez, but hold on, it's not easy.
Who's next, man?
He's got his mojo back today, isn't he? Fantastic. Right, you asked the question last, and I'm not sure how relevant this is to this race now, but the last 3 stopper to win a race, Lewis Hamilton at Hungary in 2020, but he started on intermediates, so that's not really the right answer. So I'll give you another answer. Max Verstappen, Brazil 2019, in full dry or wet weather conditions, or full dry weather conditions, I should say. Verstappen in 2019.
There you go.
Told you I'd find the answer.
Fantastic. How do you do that? Good multitasker.
For once in my life, yes. Only on a Sunday afternoon, to be fair. So, we've lost Tsunoda and Mazepin from this race. The only 2 retirees.
Is that a power cut? 3-7.
Copy, having a look. So nothing to worry about on the PU.
If it's not tyres, it's the engine. But it's Lewis Hamilton struggling a little bit in terms of how he's experiencing this Grand Prix, but Jensen still banging in the quick sectors when he's not coming up to lap other cars.
Yeah, equal last lap, and it wasn't the easiest one for Lewis, because he would have had slightly dirty tyres as he was lapping a car. He's just on the purple first sector of the race, 2 tenths up on Max, so he's coming for Max.
Well, on lap 57, we've not had a red flag and we've not had a safety car. And I don't want to jinx it too much, but I am rather surprised. I'd already put in my vote for driver of the day for Bernd Mailander before the race started, to be honest. I thought we might be quite busy today.
And you had good reason to think that. I think every session we pretty much had a red flag throughout the weekend, so from a car going through the gravel trap or hitting a barrier. So it's nice that there's no crashing cars, and we haven't needed a safety car to make this race exciting. It's been great.
15 laps to go, and the 2 drivers in the championship at the top, separated by 3 points, are on track at the moment, separated by 1.8 seconds. And as it stands, Max Verstappen will be going back to lead the World Championship after the crash at Silverstone, after the collision in Hungary that sent him tumbling down the order. Verstappen returned to winning ways in Spa in the race that wasn't really a race, but he got half points for the victory and is returning to winning ways properly here in Zandvoort this afternoon. But there are 15 laps to go and Hamilton is still on the charge. We've seen him quick in the first sector. Now is Verstappen lapping cars at the right time once again, as far as he's concerned?
Yeah, that was a pretty good one, and he should get a nice toe off of the Williams in front, as will Lewis with the Alfa Romeo. So it's not going to come into play too much here, which is a good thing. If you look at Norris, he's 1.8 seconds behind Ocon, who's now 3.4 seconds behind Fernando. So Fernando is picking it up and trying to chase down the Ferraris.
And there goes that DRS usage for Lewis Hamilton down the straight to lap Antonio Giovinazzi, who started in his equal highest grid spot ever, but is now down in 15th. Just didn't have the race pace to go with it. But that DRS, that was a couple of tenths advantage for Hamilton in the final sector of lap 58.
Yeah, Max didn't get past the Williams.
Look at that tyre performance, powered by AWS. Only 18 laps on these hard compound tyres. That's showing red in terms of the tyre performance on the front left and the rear left. So does that indicate that Verstappen's had to push those hard tyres a bit too hard, too quickly?
Possibly, but I mean, it looks really clean, that front left tyre. But it's obviously wearing. Maybe the temperature's going extremely high because it's such a hard tyre. It's scrubbing more through those high-speed corners. So, yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that's correct, but that sounds pretty scary for Max, that wear.
What were we told by Andreas Seidel, the McLaren team principal? It's not graining here. You know, it's not degradation as such. It is just wear and tear through these banked corners on these tyres.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of wear and tear, and it's loaded for a very, very long time, but you would normally think that the harder tyre would be better in that situation. But maybe because it's a harder tyre, it's more front limited than rear. Normally when you go softer, it's a rear limitation if you're not getting front graining, that is.
What I do know is that the gap is now 2.5 seconds, and in the middle parts of the previous lap, Max Verstappen was around about 0.8 of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton. And I don't think traffic played a part in that at all. Ted, down to you.
So some battles to watch out for. Sergio Perez on that soft tyre, chasing down Lando Norris, doing quicker lap times by about between 3/4 of a second and a full second plus. So he's going to get to Norris quite quickly. And also, AlphaTauri have given Pierre Gasly a mountain to climb. Gasly on the medium tyre, trying to make this one-stop work. But the Ferraris on the more durable hard tyre behind them, Leclerc is catching Gasly bit by bit. Gasly's going to do well to hang on to P4 by the time we get to the end of the race.
And if Hamilton's
that are working around the circuit, which is really unusual. Normally one is too aggressive in one way or the other, either too hard or too soft.
Good scrap going on here. Lance Stroll and George Russell. Stroll would love to pass him on the track, but he's going to be ahead of him come the end of the race, unless he makes a mistake, because the 5-second penalty for George Russell. A decent scrap going on up ahead with Ocon, Norris and Perez all coming to the conclusion of this race. They're all going to be pretty
out there.
Certainly are. The gap out in front, 4 seconds now. Hamilton's charge. Did it take too much life out of those tyres? Is Verstappen going to be able to start breathing a bit more easily with 10 laps to go? Ted, down to you.
Lance Stroll spent so much time, in fact, the whole race behind George Russell. I wouldn't be surprised if he can do a full CAD detailed computer drawing of the rear suspension and rear wing of the Williams if Aston Martin wanted it. What a miserable race for Aston Martin. Sebastian Vettel pitted early, wasn't the right idea, had to pit again, stuck in P17. As we've said before, Stroll followed Russell into the pits. It's the wrong thing to do. There was some confusion on the radio about Stroll's pit confirm button, Crofty. He was told to pit confirm, press the OK button. And Lance said, I'm pressing pit confirm, and he said, yes, that is the OK button. It seemed to be a bit of confusion with his engineer, Brad Joyce, on that. I'm sure you'll hear it a little bit later in the week on the social channels. But anyway, yeah, they've just been I mean, if they do indeed have more pace, the Aston Martin.
2 seconds, Ted.
Gap at 3.8. 3.8.
If Aston is
he complaining about something or what?
I think his tyres are done.
Finish off, Ted, very quickly.
So if Aston do have more pace than Williams, then they've been completely unable to show it today, which is a shame for them. But good for Russell. There's always two sides to one story.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ted. Here's the state of Lewis Hamilton's front left. It's the front left that gets the pounding here, isn't it?
It is, through those high-speed corners. One little battle that we haven't mentioned is Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz. He is now 3.8 seconds behind Carlos, and the last lap he was 1.3 seconds quicker.
Let's mention this one. That looks like Sergio Perez, and it is Sergio Perez, and that very much looks like Lando Norris ahead of him. And he looks an awful lot closer to Sergio Perez than we've seen him for a while. You're absolutely right. Alonso is catching Carlos Sainz for the Spanish, all-Spanish battle at the end of this race, but Perez is also catching Lando Norris. So, how does Lando Norris defend this one?
Well, Lando's on the hard tyre. Checo Perez is on the soft, so very, very different tyres. You can see the different lines that they're able to take through there. It's great to see. But no, this is a tricky one. I mean, if Checo can get close through these few corners, he's going to pick up that DRS. And it should be a reasonably easy move down into turn one. I would guess the outside if he is able to get that close.
Sebastian Vettel overtakes Antonio Giovinazzi into turn one. Lando Norris has slipped from third place in the championship in this race, and Valtteri Bottas will take over the third place spot because he's running third in this race. Alonso now very, very close to Carlos Sainz, and I dare say when they come into turn one at the end of this lap, and turn three at the moment, we might just see an overtake move. But into turn three we go with this battle. McLaren ahead of Red Bull, and McLaren will be desperate for any points they can get in this race at the moment, because Ferrari having an absolute stormer, and they started this race, Ferrari only 3.5 points behind McLaren in the championship, so they're going to take a big advantage going to their home race in Italy in a week's time. McLaren just desperate for as many points as they can finally muster after a poor qualifying yesterday, and that's how Fernando Alonso has gained on Carlos Sainz in the last few laps. And with your own eyes you can see how Sergio Perez is trying to hunt down Lando Norris. So which battle do you want to pick, Jensen? We can't talk over each other. Which one's going to have a swap of places first?
Well, it's like they're driving completely different cars, Leclerc and Sainz. 30 seconds, and Sainz has had a couple of really bad laps, sort of 1.5, 2 seconds off the pace. So I don't know if he's got a problem that he's trying to control, but it doesn't look like it's an easy car to drive.
Do you know what? Another 100 metres of straight there, and he might have been under a bit more pressure, but Fernando Alonso's going to still try and stick it out of turn one. Who knows where Fernando Alonso is going to pick an overtake move as Sainz goes up high on the banking at turn three, and Alonso follows him. Let's concentrate on this battle.
Yeah, I mean, what a lovely feeling when you're closing someone down like this and you're 1.5 seconds quicker. But now it's tricky. He's within a second, and you pick up a lot more understeer in the car, especially in the high-speed corners. The rear will be a bit lighter on exits as well. But if there is a millimetre that Fernando can slip through, he will find a way. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting battle, this one, until the end. It's great with the different strategies that are playing out with different tyres and two-stop, one-stop, pitting on different laps, and it gives this really exciting racing now.
He'll have done a lot of smiling, Fernando Alonso, this weekend, because he knows what this sort of fandom is like. Formula One exploded, didn't it, in Spain when Alonso came onto the scene and started winning races, just as it's been reignited with Max Verstappen's success in Formula One here in Holland. So he'll know what Verstappen's thinking and he'll enjoy the experience, but how he would love to get sixth place here and prove once again that he's still one of the best in the business. To be honest, team principal, I'd still very much consider sticking him on my team sheet if I had the chance. Now, what's happened here?
Just
Max
a little
Verstappen.
lock-up. Little lock-up, like front right's gone a little bit light. Damaged the tyre a tiny bit, but that shouldn't be an issue.
And Perez has got through past Lando Norris, who's going to try and brave this one out as into Sky Flock we go. And down the hill, there's already been contact in this particular battle as Perez very much got his elbows out. And, well, you can see the advantage just metre by metre. Perez extending now ahead of Lando Norris just in a few corners. And that means that the gap is reduced to, what, 8 points between Perez in 5th and Norris in 4th in the Drivers' Championship. But it all got a bit tasty at turn 3, so I'm told.
So hopefully we see a replay of that, because, oh, here we go. Perez on the outside at turn 1, braving it around the outside. Normally the quicker line to get a good exit, but he's behind.
They were not very fair.
Oh, couple of bits of contact there.
I tell you what, I wanted to see that replay run on a bit more, because I think there was a harder hit, wasn't there? As we cut away to this particular shot, well, we might just see it again. There's Lando Norris trying to push in wide, and that was wheel to wheel. They're robust if you hit them in the right places, these cars.
Yeah, that was a big lift of the tyre and suspension. You could hear the wheel spin.
Did Norris think he still had the right to that corner, and it was fair to run Perez out?
It's a really tricky one. I mean, it looked like Perez was also, he could have run a bit wider. One of that move that's a racing incident for me.
Yeah, I don't expect the stewards to take any action whatsoever. You know, I said quite a while ago, Jensen, that the top 3 here have got a huge amount of pace.
Okay, Valtteri, so box, box, box.
And they're in a different league to everyone else. Well, Pierre Gasly's just been lapped. Pierre Gasly's running 4th at the moment. Only the top 3 will finish this race on the lead lap.
This is a surprise, because they're pitting him for a new set of tyres. He's going to go out, he's going to be super quick. He's going to set the fastest lap of the race, which takes it away from Lewis. Or they're expecting that Max will have a go on the last lap. Who knows?
We shall see. Ted, down to you.
No explanation for what that hold was. That was very, very odd. He passes me, it all looked clear. Maybe it's the pit stop traffic light system has had a bit of a sort of weird moment, but that looked really odd. I can only assume, Jensen, to answer your question, they're going to pit Lewis the next lap round and put him on the soft tyres as well.
It's a tricky one to do, isn't it, when you're 2.9 seconds or 3.3 seconds behind the leader. If Max makes a mistake, he's through. So you're going to throw that away to possibly get 1 extra point. Surprising.
Yeah,
So you're on the soft, we're going to +1. We're not going for fastest.
Why not?
So Lewis will have a free stop at the end.
Well, that's team orders. That's we're going to protect 2nd for Lewis, 3rd for you. This was the slow stop for Valtteri Bottas, and they have now built in a delay in between the wheels being attached properly and the light going green to send the cars out. But that delay should only be about 0.2 of a second, so it could be to do with the system. I'm not quite sure on that one. So Hamilton's going to pit again.
Why did we stop then?
Precautionary for tyre vibrations.
He did say he was suffering vibrations a bit earlier on in this race on a previous set of tyres. So they'll stop Hamilton again. Basically, they're conceding this race now, and it's like, we'll get the fastest lap, we'll get a point for that. That's the best we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Or Valtteri just goes for it.
Well, what would you, if you were Valtteri Bottas, and knowing that at some stage next week your future's going to be confirmed, and unless there's a sudden change in direction that we haven't seen coming, it's going to be going to Alfa Romeo. Would you go for the fastest lap here?
I really don't know, but this is interesting because he set a purple sector 1.
He can set a fastest lap. Chances are Hamilton is going to be able to go quicker when he then pits. But to me, it's a risk. It's a risky one unless they feel that Red Bull on that last lap can take the fastest lap with Max Verstappen. But I don't know why Mercedes are really doing this. He's put.
Valtteri, it's James. Please abort the fastest lap attempt before the end of the lap.
Right, so he's gone purple. Fastest first sector, fastest middle sector for Valtteri Bottas. And he might just be slowing down a bit as he crosses the line. He did slow down. He did abort the fastest lap attempt. He still got the fastest lap, though.
Oh, no.
He was 0.8 of a second quicker in the final sector than the previous best final sector. He did slow down, because I was watching the mini sectors, but he's still gone quickest. So Lewis is now going to have to come in to get that fastest lap point back. But Jensen, it does seem an unnecessary kerfuffle, this.
Yeah. I need that extra point, guys.
Copy, we're on it. Okay, Lewis, box.
Yeah, it's an extra point, but as I said, it's a big risk if Max has an issue. You know, if he locked up, ran wide, he would have been through if he went through the gravel. So it's a tricky one, and it's something that's new to Formula 1 since we've got a point for fastest lap, obviously. Yeah. I never had this when I was racing.
Exactly. The pressure's on because there is that extra point up for grabs. But yeah, imagine what happens there. Max Verstappen makes a small error now. Mercedes think, well, they've thrown away the race win, but they've also caused a little bit of friction within the team itself. Ted, down to you.
George Russell has had a problem and has had to pit and serve that 5-second penalty.
Thank you, Ted. So Lance Stroll has gone ahead of him. Sebastian Vettel behind George Russell and very close to George Russell as well, as the party is beginning to get underway in proper earnest. The Dutch fans have been in festival mood throughout this weekend. They celebrated after he got the pole position yesterday. They are ready to do the proper celebrations throughout this final lap and after the checkered flag is out. The reason we're here is Max Verstappen, Jensen Button, and he has absolutely delivered for the faithful this weekend.
He has, but he hasn't had it all his own way, which is what we love. You know, Lewis has pushed him the whole way, and I think the fans love that there's this fight for Max. He hasn't just got it easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's tough, and he's racing against the best guy in the world, one of the best guys in the world, Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion. But it looks like he's going to finish this race in first position, and I cannot wait for what this crowd is going to do.
Stand by for the celebrations on this one. Born in Hasselt in Belgium, but he went to school in Holland. His father, Jos, obviously Dutch as well, and he said from an early age, I feel more Dutch. I was raised as a Dutchman, and when he had the chance to choose his nationality, he said, I want to be a Dutchman. So last weekend, he won at Spa in the country of his birth. This weekend in Holland, he is going to win as a Dutch driver, a Dutch national, and it is double Dutch delight for Max Verstappen, who crosses the line to win the Dutch Grand Prix. Tiesto waves the flag, turn up to the max, listen to that roar.
Wow, fantastic, isn't it? What an atmosphere. And, you know, if you're here and you're watching and you don't support Max, it doesn't matter. This is such an amazing atmosphere. This is Formula 1.
The crucial thing for Hamilton is can he get the fastest lap of the race on the last lap of the race, and he does. So he wins that extra point for the fastest lap on a day where he and Mercedes were second best to Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Valtteri Bottas will come home third, and the podium once again will feature Hamilton, Verstappen and Bottas, and they've shared the podium more times than any other drivers in Formula 1. Everybody else lapped by the leader, Pierre Gasly, fourth downwards, all been lapped by this man here, race winner. What a day for Verstappen.
But that is a really, really mature drive. And what a present to your fans. Race win.
Well done, mate. That was epic. That was epic. You've won your home race. You were brilliant today. Enjoy this lap and enjoy the podium.
Thank you very much, guys. Amazing strategy. We were really sharp today, and nice pushing 72 laps here. I love it. Great job, guys.
bet he does love it as well. They had the fastest car. Mercedes tried to gamble with strategy, and it was never enough really to put this victory in doubt.
But they, you know, it was still a tough race for him. He was being pushed the whole time by Lewis. He had Valtteri to overtake at one point during the race. It wasn't easy, so that also means more to a driver, that he didn't just walk away with it. So he's going to celebrate. He's probably wishing there wasn't the Grand Prix next weekend, I'm guessing.
Quite, listen to this. As he slows down into the grandstand section, the arena section. We are seeing something quite unique. We really are.
Well, guys, they were just too fast this weekend and today. I gave it absolutely everything. And thank you so much for all the hard work, as always.
No, thanks, Lewis. Yeah, we knew you'd give it your all. But yeah, great drive. We're going to be bouncing back in Monza, double R.
And, well, will the championship lead swing again, we wonder. Hamilton knows what it's like to win your home race. You know, he is, you know, the most successful driver around Silverstone. The British fans are different in their passion for Formula One. There tends to be a more balanced cross-section of support, even though the majority is for Lewis. Here, Jensen, I think I've seen 2 Mercedes and 1 Aston Martin shirt all weekend long, and the rest it's just all been orange. This is a unique fandom that maybe goes back to the days of Schumacher in Germany, I don't know, but they're here for one man and one man only.
Yeah, you got to think with Lewis, he's got 2 other great British drivers.
Yeah.
There have been many great British drivers in the past, whereas he's the only Dutch driver to win a Grand Prix. So he's going to have all the support from the fans. And yeah, as we've said many times, it's such a lovely atmosphere. And they seem like very, very cool fans that support this sport as a whole.
Oh, yeah. And they've come here for a festival and the celebration. So he drapes himself in the flag of the Netherlands. Have a listen to that.
I kind of wish we were out there right now.
Yeah. Can we take our microphones and go stand on the grid? Tiesto gives him a hug, and now the Red Bull team wait to give him a hug as well. And the fact is that he's experiencing this at the age of 23. We forget how young Max Verstappen is and how well he's doing to cope with a huge pressure on him.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. I mean, he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders anyway, fighting for a world championship, but to have the crowd here, as you said, 99% of them for him, that's tough for a 23-year-old. It's hard for anyone that's you know, in a sport that's so competitive like this, but 23, that's very young.
And the king as well. This is by royal appointment, this victory today.
But, you know, we also have to look at Mercedes and Lewis and say that they should be proud with what they did today, because they pushed him super hard. They tried everything. They got second. It's not what they wanted, but as a team, they should be reasonably happy with what they did.
Well, they'll come back double hard, said Pete Bonington, next week in Monza. What a triple header this is. The washout at Spa and the race that never was. The sunshine and the celebrations for Max Verstappen here at Zandvoort, and who knows what Monza will bring us. The one thing we can say, it'll be another fast and frenetic race. And Mercedes will fancy their chances, because once again, Red Bull were the slowest on the straights and the speed traps, and it's all about speed down at Monza.
Yes, exactly. Very, very different circuit to here. There is a straight here, but it's all about carrying that speed out of that second to last corner. So straight line speed isn't a big factor.
The one man who didn't have the speed today in terms of his influence on this race win and the lead, Valtteri Bottas. He did lead when Verstappen and Hamilton first pitted, and he couldn't do much to hold up his charge. Sergio Perez, driver of the day, really, finishing 8th after starting from the pit lane on a track that's very, very difficult to overtake. George Russell, in the end, finished down in 17th, and I think officially retired from the race. And Tsunoda and Mazepin, the other 2 retirees as well. Well done to Lando Norris. He did finish with 1 point. And Fernando Alonso did get Carlos Sainz in the end, finished 6th. Robert Dornbos, former Red Bull driver, is doing the post-race interviews today.
Max Verstappen, you have just won the Heineken Dutch Grand Prix in front of the royal family and this amazing crowd. What does this win mean to you?
as you can hear already, it's just incredible. Of course, you know, the expectations were very high going into the weekend, and it's never easy to fulfill that. But yeah, I'm of course so happy to win here, to take the lead as well in the championship. It's just an amazing day with just the whole crowd. Yeah, it's incredible.
Max, you had an amazing start. You didn't put a foot wrong. The team strategically also did a great job countering Mercedes. Could have anything gone better for you, or is it just the perfect day out of your career?
It's definitely a very good day. I mean, start was very important. I think we did that well. Then, of course, Mercedes tried to make it very difficult for us. But we counter them all the time really well. And yeah, we can be really pleased with the whole team performance today.
Well done, congratulations. You're leading the World Championship again, and enjoy this amazing crowd. Thank you, guys. This is awesome. Lewis, how was it here? Hard work out there? Sweaty?
Man, what a race, what a crowd. Honestly, it's been an amazing weekend. Max did a great job. Congratulations to him. I gave it absolutely everything today, flat out. Pushed as hard as I could, but they were just too quick for us. So I've had an amazing time here in Holland, thanks to the crowd. So thank you so much for having us.
Congratulations with P2. I mean, you've been so close, 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds behind Max, always looking. It looked like rush hour out there. Take us through the traffic.
Yeah, I'm gonna call him Noah from now on, man. Just every time he got traffic, they just moved out of the way. And it was very hard to navigate through all the traffic, but they just had that upper edge, and it's very hard to follow here.
And the last lap, you came in for extra set of tires, obviously to get the point for fastest lap. Well done. Was it like a mini qualifying session for you?
The last lap was one of the best parts of the race for me, because this track is just incredible on a single lap, low fuel. This is now one of my favorite tracks, so I'm looking forward to coming back next year.
I can see you smiling. Congrats with P2. Well done. Amazing. Another podium finisher for Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri, congratulations with your podium. I mean, you've been on the podium before. You won the Marlboro Masters many years ago. Take us through your race. You're happy with P3?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, pretty uneventful. You know, obviously kept pushing, but we tried a one-stop, so I went for a long first stint and tried to, you know, survive with the tires till the end. But at the end, we had quite a big gap behind me, so we just made a stop for safety, basically. So, I mean, yeah, we tried, but we just didn't quite have a pace today.
Did you enjoy, as your teammate, the sort of new tire run near the end to get the point for fastest lap?
Yeah, I didn't go for the fastest lap, but yeah, Lewis got it. So, but yeah, as a team, we got solid points.
Yeah, you've done a great job. Should be happy and enjoy the crowd here.
Yeah,
they're also here for you.
It's cool. Yeah, they've been really supportive. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't go for the fastest lap in the final sector. Might have gone for it in the first two sectors. Valtteri Bottas, who's now in third place in the Drivers' Championship on 123 points. Max Verstappen has a 3-point lead over Lewis Hamilton, 224.5 to 221.5. And the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes now have a 12-point advantage over Red Bull. Perez got driver of the day. You've just been saying to me, Jenson Button, you thought Alonso should have got a bit higher up on that one as well. A real thinking drive was the way you described it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just those two either. You'd have to say that Max, he controlled the race well and pushed when he had to. Pierre Gasly, P4, always a bit quiet out there because he's on his own. Leclerc got the best out of the Ferrari. So there are many good drives out there, but yes, you would say Checo because he made the race the most exciting for us watching.
Pierre Gasly goes on to 66 points for the season, which I think ties his total for last year, and he's still got quite a few more races to go. That fourth place finish equals his best of the year, I think, his 10th points finish of 2021. He really is having a great time of it at Alpha Tauri. And Valtteri Bottas then picks up another podium, and it's another third place as well. His 7th podium this season, his 6th for third place. Alongside him on the podium, Lewis Hamilton, who finishes second for the 5th time this year. Only finished second once in the whole of last season. And Max Verstappen making a habit of winning from pole, isn't he? It's his 5th win from pole position in 2021. Top of the podium, top of the championship, and I dare say, top of the world here in Zandvoort this afternoon.
The Netherlands sung by Davina Michel and the Austrian national anthem.
Den vaderland getrouwe blijf ik tot in de dood. De prinsen van Oranje ben ik vrij onverveeld. De koning van Spanje heb ik altijd
And in front of King Wilhelm of the Netherlands, Max Verstappen stands on top of the podium and has the Dutch national anthem sung. I thought that was utterly beautiful. Never seen live singing of the national anthem on the podium here. Well, what a season, JB. Lewis Hamilton started out leading the championship after Bahrain. Max Verstappen took over after Monaco. Then Lewis Hamilton took over after Hungary, and now Max Verstappen after Holland is back on top again. Where do we go from here?
Well, it's a dream season, isn't it, for us? It really is. For fans of Formula One around the world, this is exactly what we want. The two best going at it every race.
So who's got the better car? The two drivers at the peak of their abilities, and it's up to Red Bull and Mercedes to provide the best car they possibly can. There'll be different challenges brought up by the different tracks that we're going to. I think Red Bull feel that they've got a car that can handle most of them, but who knows?
Yeah, that's the good thing. We've got such different tracks on this, circuits on this calendar that it does get mixed up. And, you know, I think that Red Bull did have a small advantage here, but it could all turn around next weekend in Monza.
Certainly could. Thanks for your company today, JB.
Thank you.
It's been brilliant. And a fantastic weekend in Holland. The Dutch Grand Prix is back. Max Verstappen, with the most special of his 17 wins in Formula One, is back on top of the World Championship. Here in Holland this weekend, there was no Verstappen, Max Verstappen.
So a happy ending for the Dutch fans that have turned out en masse to support their idol. No Dutchman previously finished in the top 5 in a Dutch Grand Prix. And at the first time of asking here in Zandvoort, Max Verstappen has turned that pole position into victory in front of the King, the crowd and the millions watching on TV. It's been a wonderful celebration of everything done. so far this weekend, a hugely successful event, you'd have to say, for all involved. If you're thinking of coming to a race, I would stick this one in the diary for next year if you can make it. Our friendly neighbours, the Dutch, have put on quite a show, and they have got the result that they wanted. What it means for the championship is a 6-point swing, if you like, because Max Verstappen, who trailed at the start of the day by 3, now leads by 3. Lewis Hamilton picking up a very decent fastest lap on the last lap there to get an extra point for himself. But it might have been a standard drive for Max Verstappen, no trouble at all, really, on the afternoon. But I think great respect once again between himself and Lewis Hamilton, these two battling it out as they have been all season. But it's always had some decent respect between the pair, and we hope that will continue all the way through to the final race in Abu Dhabi in December. And let's hope it goes down to the wire, because this season deserves that, doesn't it? Christian Horner will be a happy man too, as they pick up 25 points for their efforts this afternoon. And Sergio Perez with a fine drive as well from the pit lane up into the 8th. He was driver of the day. Right, as far as we're concerned on Sky Sports, we are back. Return of the sprint race too. We last saw it out in Silverstone. We're going to see it in Monza, and that's the last of the 3 on this triple header after the summer break. Cricket continues intriguingly poised as well. England against India, day 4. India have built a big lead now on Sky Sports Cricket. It'll be for England to attempt to chase down to win the series as it's level at 1-1. Today, the Super League Magic Weekend continues with Wigan against Warrington. That's now on Sky Sports Arena. And the Solheim Cup also continues now on Sky Sports Golf in Ohio as Europe look to retain the cup.